sort of a weird face, kind of unattractive.
Yeah!
It's the Carmichael Dave Show.
Come on. Let's wake up.
With Jason Ross.
He is wise.
The only local sports talk show that helps you get through your morning commute. The Carmichael Dave Show with Jason Ross on Sports 1140 KHTK.
Good morning. How's everybody doing?
You're back!
I'm back. And I know now what you're talking about, Jay. The on-looking Christopher Lott over the top of your shoulder.
So how are you feeling about this? This
love
aesthetic.
Love it. Well, yeah, we need to keep moving it to get them right, just so we get him peering just over your work right there. Your workspace. Good morning, everybody. Happy last day of May. It's almost Christmas, Jay.
I know, it's crazy, right?
Man, how was your weekend?
It was not long enough, as the kids say.
Yeah.
I guess actually everyone says that, don't they?
Yeah.
No, it was good, though. I really enjoyed yesterday. I don't know, something about, especially, I guess, when you have a 3:30 wake-up call, having a Monday off is just, it makes it extra special.
It's pretty fantastic. I know there's been talks, I think, for a couple years, and there might even be, I don't know if I heard this right a while back, like a law or vote for 4-day work weeks, like 10-hour work days. I love that concept, but I don't think it could work for us in radio. But I've always loved that idea of 4-day work weeks.
Yeah, I think it could if it was a universal 4-day work week, because then our day off would be most people's day off, like a Saturday, Sunday. So, like, let's say we work Monday through Thursday, right?
Mm-hmm.
And universally, everyone has Friday off.
It's like accepted, and then we just figure out something else that's on the radio.
You do weekend programming the way you do Saturday, Sunday on a Friday.
Yeah, just 1 day earlier.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's the way I look at it.
I think we should incorporate that.
I agree. I'd rather work 4 10s than 5 8s.
Yeah, and the beauty of that is if you always put there's rarely, I mean, it'd have to be like a Christmas or a 4th of July or some, where the dates stay standard.
Sure.
But we get Mondays off, every couple of months, every month or so. So if it's Friday always, that's pretty nice. Some weeks you have 3.
I agree.
Yes. Though we love working.
We do love working, but we do love our days off.
Yes.
Thank you to everybody. Memorial Day, obviously, all the veterans out there that served.
Yes.
Appreciate and love you and support you, obviously. But we got the big one coming up, Jason. Here at Bonneville, our wonderful company, we get not 1, but 2 days off for 4th of July.
That's right, because the 4th, is it falling on a Monday or Tuesday?
I believe the 4th this year falls on a Monday.
But we get Tuesday.
But they give us 2 days off. So we get Monday, Tuesday, and then me and you are taking the rest of the week off.
Yeah.
So, sorry, everyone, you're stuck with Dave.
How about that? And I'm fresh coming off a vacation. I was on vacation last week.
Look at you.
Yes.
Vacation Ross.
Which was
Jaycation Ross.
Wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. I've been doing this golf trip for I don't know how many years, but it got away. And I think there was a day last week, Jay, you would obviously know being here. I want to say, was there a day last week that got to 100? It was like 101.
Yeah, there's 2. Tuesday and Wednesday last week. Wednesday, we set a record. We got all the way up to 103.
Oh, really? I didn't realize it was that hot. Okay.
Yeah, it was a record day.
So I was, at that day, was still playing golf up at the Oregon coast, and I would say it was 60, maybe 58.
Overcast?
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm
right in my wheelhouse, man.
Seeing my phone, I'm like, whoa. I didn't know. I thought it was getting close to 100, but I didn't realize it got over 100.
Yeah, it got to 103 on Wednesday. It was first pool day of the year for Isaiah. That's where we were at in May. So I have something for you and your great overcast weather. You ready?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm right back at you, buddy.
Oh, the 2-hand wave.
Yeah.
But see, I'm on the other side where I know you don't, and Dave specifically hates the warm. I don't mind the warm weather.
I like warm. I don't like hot.
That's hot. That
warm
is
hot. Fine. 103, that's hot.
But didn't you go swimming? Didn't you get in the pool?
I didn't.
No?
Wasn't in the mood that day.
Okay. I'm on a pool streak, by the way.
What does that mean?
I've gone to the pool every day.
Really? Is your pool heated?
No.
You get in the pool in 80-degree weather?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, it's refreshing.
Oh, man.
Like yesterday, I mean, like you jump in, it's like, woo! And then, I wouldn't say it was cold, but it's just refreshing. I was in the pool for a while.
Well, you must have nice water then, because the water at the pool in my complex is freezing cold.
Yeah, but you can't. Do you walk in? Like, do you go to the steps?
Oh, no, I'm a jumper.
Okay, because that's what you have to do.
Yeah, I'm a jumper.
I mean, there was a while, one of the things when we first got the pool, I was like, okay, I've always wanted a pool, fortunate enough to do this. and I wanted to stay committed to it where I was doing at least 1 day a month I would get in the pool.
Interesting.
So I did that for a year.
Getting
Now,
your
obviously,
use.
there's some times where I'm literally jumping in November.
I was
going to
ask you, you're jumping in December?
Yes.
And you didn't get sick?
No, I mean, again, I'm not swimming. It's literally a jump in, jump out, and cool off. And the only way I can explain it, I don't know if anybody else would feel this way on our YouTube or certainly on our text line. There's something, and I know people do athletes do like those ice baths or those cryogenic things. It literally like wakes up all your senses.
Well, Klay Thompson said that in a recent interview. Like, that's how he wakes up in the morning. He goes and jumps in the pool.
Yeah.
And obviously, the Bay Area, 80% of the year is cold.
Right. And I believe that. And the other thing I noticed, and this is going to probably sound weird to people, but most of the time when you think of the pool, just like you said, okay, it's 100, it's burning outside. I need to cool off and jump in. What I found is, honestly, in the colder months, so let's say it's December and it's 50. I don't know what the water temperature is, but it's cold. The gap between the two isn't that extreme.
So what you're saying...
it's cold.
Sure.
I'm not saying like it's warm. That's not warm.
But what you're saying is the pool doesn't make you significantly colder as if you didn't jump in.
If it was 100,
Right.
it's not, the pool water's probably not 50, but it might be 60 to 70, and that's a 30-degree difference when you're jumping in when it's cold outside.
Absolutely.
It's because your body's going under.
Sure.
Yeah. But like you get out, I'm like, whoa! But like when you get out, it's like I'm actually not cold out of the pool. It's a bizarre feeling.
I haven't done a polar plunge, so to speak,
Yeah.
in, 25, 30 years.
It wakes up your senses.
No, well, that's what they say, and I could imagine. I guess I'm worried about, like, okay, it's 3:30 in the morning. Let me go wake up by jumping in my pool.
Right.
I know I'm going to wake up. I'm scared for the crash.
What do you mean?
Basically, like, I wake up, I got all my senses, I'm good to go.
Oh,
like,
and
I
then
feel
the
like I'm
shutdown
going to
like a sugar?
naturally, yes,
Yeah.
like a sugar high.
I haven't noticed that because I don't think it's that. I think it's just it gets everything alert and then you.
Interesting.
But I didn't do it as a wake up. It's like sometime during the day.
Mm-hmm.
I remember one of the years.
Did your wife look at you like you're nuts?
No, but she did remind me it was this last year, like to complete the full year. I think it was October and it was Halloween. And she said, "Did you go in the pool this month?" And I said, "Oh no!" And it was like time for trick or treat. It was dark, and I
So
went,
she was looking out for you.
I gotta go in the pool. So
you really did.
yeah, I went in.
You really couldn't skip a
Oh,
month.
I wanted to commit to it. So what was great is I did it that night, jumped in, got out freezing, but then I go, and the very next day, it was November 1st, I jumped in. I'm like, I'm good.
Get it out of the
I
way.
did
just
November.
do a back-to-back.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah, so I was good to go. But yeah, it's pool time. I love it. Love it.
I'm glad you get use out of your pool. That's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely want to make sure I do that. So, all in all, though, it was a good weekend for you?
Oh, it was a great weekend.
Yeah.
Hit up Amador yesterday.
Oh, I saw that. I saw that on the Instagram.
I love Amador.
Yeah?
It's such a cool... I mean, outside of the winery, it's just a cool little spot. If you've never been up there, I highly recommend just taking a day trip. It's fun.
And you go there for the winery, though, right?
I go there for the wine,
Yeah.
but they have a bunch of, you're right there in Plymouth, and it's kind of old town, but they have a lot of really boutique shops out there and stuff. It's really a cool experience if you've never done it. They have a lot of like bed and breakfast if you want to do an overnight stay. Again, just a lot of fun.
Could someone like myself who is not I feel like the reason you go is for the wine.
Sure, that's, I would say 85% of people go for
So
the
what
wine.
I enjoyed is like as someone that doesn't drink wine.
Yeah, like I said, there's a ton of little boutique areas, restaurants and stuff, just cool, old school architecture. It's really fun.
So
yeah,
can
I
you,
think you could.
as someone who enjoys wine, can you literally like describe wine as someone that I feel like a wine connoisseur does? Oh, this one's buttery, or this one has an whatever
I'm not
hit to it, or
I'm not in those because I'm not really a taster. I'm more of a texture person, but I
Okay.
can obviously taste stuff. So do I know every little note that's hitting? No. I know if it tastes good or not.
yeah.
That's how I am.
Like,
I
good,
tell people,
bad.
like,
Yeah.
why do you like X, Y, and Z winery? Because it's good.
Yeah.
It's good.
No more details than
No,
that.
I'm sorry. I'm not going to tell you about, this one has notes of apricot with a crisp green apple finish.
Yeah.
With the Chardonnay, it's more of an old school oaky barrel buttery taste.
Right.
No, I'm not.
That's
that
what
guy.
I never, again, I've had wine, I would try it, and some people are like, try this one because it has, and they'll describe it that way. And I'm like, no, I just don't like it.
Yeah,
Or
I'm
it's
the
good,
same
or
way,
it's
dude.
like, you know what, maybe like to the texture point, I go, it feels or taste maybe thicker or
Right.
some other. I go, yeah, but other than that, I don't.
I
don't
can
know.
usually kind of describe like the aftertaste, which is what I really go for. I'm not, as they say, I don't really care about when it's on the nose
Yeah.
or the aftertaste. Oh, yeah. No, but yeah, I'm not a wine snob like that. I just know what I like. I
Yeah.
just know what I think tastes good and what doesn't.
Well, that's important too, and it's good to get away. It's good to be back. Dave's
Well, it was
not.
a beautiful day yesterday.
Oh,
too,
yesterday
man.
was
Had to be
perfect.
outdoors.
Except for I will say this: I felt like before I left on my trip and came back, has it been windier here than I
Yes,
can ever
dude.
remember? Like, what is?
The
Why is it
wind is-
windy every day?
The wind has been terrible. It wasn't bad yesterday, but yeah, no.
Saturday,
Saturday, Sunday,
and
Friday,
Sunday were bad.
Thursday, it
Yeah.
sucked.
I just don't
Like,
remember this amount of wind
the-
this time of year.
Pollen was high, and Isaiah has allergies, so we like to go out on a walk every night,
Yeah.
and he's just sneezing up a storm.
Yeah, I've had brutal allergies, and like they say, if you come to Sacramento, if you don't have allergies, you'll get them. But
Yeah, they find their way to you. Don't worry, you don't have to find them.
fortunately for me, kind of Memorial Day has been the barometer. It's like things have like I'm usually pretty good from here on out, but the wind's not helping anybody.
No, it doesn't. And I don't, my allergies aren't bad, but it's funny, me and Dave were talking about this. We both had the same thing. When these seasons change like this, I get the summer cold.
Yeah.
And so at least now I know it'll be a cold since I just recently had COVID, but I hate feeling a head cold in hot weather. There are more gross feelings than that, but not a whole lot. Like
Yeah.
having a cold in hot weather is disgusting.
Jump in the pool. I don't know. If
I
that'll
don't think
do it,
that'll
but
fix it.
I don't know. Cleans everything out. No, I might have just made something up. It's
Dr.
one of
Ross.
those old remedies.
I think your Cage Dr. Ross thing
Yeah,
is
it's
starting
just taking
to,
over.
Yeah.
Could be. It could be. All right, we're just getting started here on this May 31st. My goodness, tomorrow's June. That means the finals are almost here. We got the finals. They're all set. We'll get that going.
That means the draft's almost here.
That's
really
true, too.
exciting.
We are looking forward to all of that, so let's get it started with leading off next.
Load.
Sports 1140.
KHTK.
one, we would have talked about a collapse by Boston, but where it was going for me was it was reminding me a little bit of the Milwaukee-Boston series,
Yes.
in which the Game 6 performance by Jason Tatum against Milwaukee set the stage for Game 7, and then then Boston won, but really Tatum saved the season. What Jimmy Butler did in Game 6 was so incredible, and I thought, wow, if they win that Game 6 performance, and then, of course, a lot of people end up talking about Jimmy Butler's last shot.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's a wide open three.
Yeah.
I just, I thought they were pretty critical of him at the beginning of just when it happened. Hey, he could have gone one-on-one against Al Horford. He could have. He could have missed it. Could have had a block. Could have scored. Could have been fouled. There's 10 things that could have happened.
That's not going to define the series,
I
though.
had zero problem with that. I mean, Jimmy Butler, your best player, taking I wouldn't even say contested. It's a one-on-one, not one-on-one, but a fast break, open three.
Yeah, that's not Ben Simmons shooting that.
He could make it, and it also was a little bit of the moment. I mean, the shot that Strus made before that was an impossible three, but that's what you need to do when you're down 13 with like 3 minutes to go. So you're already kind of in that mode, Jay, and it's like, let's just go. And, yeah, there's time and score, but actually, I didn't mind the look at all.
I didn't either, and but I can also understand the being critical of it, but that's also, again, when you're talking about, and you kind of laid it out, the moment of the game, where you're at, where the momentum had been swinging, the shot prior to that, it's not an unthinkable shot. He didn't pull it from half court.
Right.
Right. It wasn't one of those like, oh my God, how could you shoot that shot with that much time left? I didn't have an issue with it. Yeah,
they could have gotten an offensive rebound. They didn't. I mean, there's a lot of things that.
Again, hindsight, could he have gone one-on-one there?
Maybe.
Yeah. Is that, if you're going to hold that over Jimmy Butler's head as like, that's what cost them the series, you just don't understand what you're talking about.
Right.
That series to me was just defined by injury, and I think Boston was just healthier. I think if all sides are healthy, that's a really fun 7-game series. But I think between Butler having the knee inflammation, and I know he had the big Game 6 and 7s, but prior to that, he had been not good.
Yeah, and I know
Kyle Lowry had been unplayable, if you ask me.
Yeah, he was bad. He did not have a good series, and I know he said, look, any year you don't make it to the finals is a wasted year. They brought him in to help get them to the finals. They had the 1 seed. They had a great season, but it just, he wasn't the same. Butler was great. Bam, I thought, would be a bigger factor. Like, Bam needs to become – they did such a good job of developing him as an offensive player that could handle the ball and be a creator. Like, in this series specifically, I felt like he should have been a low-post dominant player, and he wasn't.
No, he didn't at all. And you have Joel Embiid out there saying, Miami needs another star. And I was like, I get what he's saying, but also shade at Bam Adebayo, because I do think Bam Adebayo is a star.
Yeah.
Not a bona fide superstar, but he's been an all-star in the league already. He's a really good player. But I'm with you. That series needed way more of him on the offensive side to make up for – with Butler being hurt, Tyler Hero being hurt, Kyle Lowry being hurt, Struss was not that great.
Right. They just had issues all the way through. To their credit, they always compete. And I think what's good to me about, I know some people are complaining the finals aren't until Thursday. The Warriors have had the benefit of finishing series early, and the other teams are going to playing 7. But also, I think Boston needs the time. Like, dude, I think this is good for us to see a better NBA Finals.
Absolutely. You want, especially with Boston, because, all series long, it's been Marcus Smart and Robert Williams are going to be probable. Are they going to play? You want those guys healthy. I think both of them, Marcus Smart, you don't even really have to get into how much he means to that team, but having a healthy Robert Williams down there on the block, especially on the defensive side of the ball, I think makes all the difference in the world for the Celtics.
Yeah, and one more thing. I know we're going to get a lot more into this series for sure today and through the next couple of days, but, credit to Boston to getting there, and I just can't even imagine their season where if we were doing Boston radio, Jay, back in early January, going, got to break it up. Ime's over.
You got to fire Stevens now. Udoka was a terrible hire.
And here
Al
they are.
Horford's 76 years old. The Celtics are old. They got to blow it up.
4 wins away now. Amazing.
It is. It's been one of the more amazing turnarounds in NBA history.
Yeah.
Who you rooting for? Warriors or Celtics?
Rooting? None.
Well,
I honestly.
Rooting's the wrong word. If you had to pick one of those two teams to win, what's the better story?
Better story might be Boston.
Might be the Warriors, though.
Yeah,
Injuries
I
for
don't
2
know.
years. It's really fun. It's a good debate.
Yeah, I like the series, though.
Yeah,
I
it's
really
going to
do.
be a fun. I really like this matchup. First time we're ever seeing it in NBA history.
Which is amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the run the Warriors are on, by the way, 6 and 8 years it's incredible.
Yep,
It's incredible what they've done.
I believe it's the first team to do it since the Jordan Bulls of the 90s, correct?
Yeah,
6
absolutely.
and 8. Yeah.
Impressive. All right, next cut leading off.
Cut number 2.
Swinging. There's a high drive to left field. That ball is on its way back there. Goodbye. A 2-run homer for Kurt Casale. And the Giants are back ahead 5-3.
Yeah, I mean, we're almost through 2 months of the Major League Baseball season. It's a long grind. There's a long way to go, but starting to identify a little bit more tendencies in what these teams are. Giants get a win in Philadelphia. A little shaky. They tried to go the distance with Logan Webb. They end up winning in extras. And again, I feel like the Giants are good. They're in a great division with the Padres and then the Dodgers. That's part of their problem. But they were there last year, and they managed to be in front most of the year, which was good for them. Now they're the ones chasing, and still think they're good, but I still think they're maybe a tweak that we're going to get into the next segment that could really, really change
That's
things.
a big tweak.
Oh, a humongous one if they did it.
But for this team to be 26 and 21, let's consider the following. The Dodgers have been just lights out.
Yep.
The Padres rotation is fantastic. The Giants, I know they added Carlos Rodon, and he's been really good.
Mhm.
I know Jock Peterson's been a great addition, but this is a team that lost Chris Bryant, who's a former MVP. You lost another former MVP in retirement in Buster Posey.
Yep.
You lost a starting pitcher in Kevin Gausman, who has just been lights out up in Toronto, and you're still 5 games above 500 in arguably the toughest division, because I think the AL East has a nice, argument to make there. If you're a Giants fan, you have to be pretty impressed with what this team has done considering everything.
Yeah, and where they are, things are going fine, but I think there needs to be a little bit of a push.
Yeah, I agree, because
to get them going to where they think they can be.
as of right now, I think them being 5 games over 500 and third place in the NL West is about right.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Given the roster, given the talent on this team, that is about right. So if you're going to look to climb back into the playoff race, well, I mean, you're in the playoff race.
Yeah.
I shouldn't say that. But if you're going to really try to compete for the division per se and lock up a wild card without much issue, this lineup needs another big bat.
Yeah.
Big bat, because you've been dealing with, Brandon Belt hurt. You've been dealing with injuries all year.
Longoria was hurt for the beginning
Longoria was
part.
hurt, and Longoria will probably get hurt again.
Yes.
Brandon Belt will come back and probably get hurt again, just because, again, these guys are injury prone. They're
Yep.
older. This is a thing. You have to add some firepower.
Yeah, for sure. We'll get more on the Giants and more on that big move they could do coming up, but let's get our third cut leading off.
Cut number 3.
All right, this is going to be happening in a couple of hours, and I know tennis isn't always on everyone's radar, but why I brought this one up today is it's the quarterfinals of the French Open. And quarterfinals, whatever, just another match. But it's Nadal versus Djokovic. And these are two of the greatest of all time.
Mm-hmm.
Throw in Federer, throw in a few others if you like. The fact that they're playing here, they're playing now, it's today, feels like a championship, a Grand Slam final, but it's this early, and I know there was injuries and different things that do seedings and whatnot. But, I think it's one of those things, Jay, that I know a lot of people aren't even into tennis. When these legends are gone, then they're probably
For
even
sure.
going to be more appreciated.
But these are also the type of matchups where I am not a tennis fan.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't even call myself a casual.
Yeah.
But when you get two legends in any of their sports meeting, people want to watch.
Yeah.
Because name will trump the sport at that point, and people do want to watch greatness. So
Yeah.
I'll be one of those people that probably tunes into this for a little bit. I don't have a horse in this race per
Right.
se, but again, I like when legends go at it. I like when you get two stars, especially ones that are still really good at what they do, meeting in, a Grand Slam tournament. It's going to be fun.
Yeah, and most of the time it's, seeing two of the best teams playing an early round. This feels like a
Correct.
final, and it's in the first round.
The
It's
Nets
like-
and Celtics.
Yes. And here we are in a quarterfinals between these two, and they'll go a little bit later today. All right, we were talking about the Giants. There is a big move that could really redirect this season, and I personally think they should go all in to do it. We'll talk about that next.
Sports 1140.
KHTK.
Sports 1140 KHTK.
So a couple months in now to the Major League Baseball season. We were talking a little bit, Jay, about the San Francisco Giants, and we'll feature the A's a little bit. But the A's, I think, are doing what we expected. Here they are. They lost their last couple. They're 20 and 31, 12 games out behind the Astros, playing the Astros right now. A's fans treating the Astros like we would expect, booing them every time Bregman and Altuve come to the plate. But the A's just don't have enough. I mean,
clearly had an effect on those guys.
Yeah. Yordan Alvarez hitting bombs left and right yesterday.
Jeez.
But, I mean, the reality is they've done a full reboot when they had so many of their overachieving players. I feel like the last couple of years that their best group, they dealt all of them, and this is all predictable what's happened to the A's.
Yeah, they either dealt all of them, but more, I mean, they dealt Chapman, they dealt Olsen, but the really bad thing was losing guys like Liam Hendricks to free agency, Marcus Semien, you lost to free agency.
Yep.
You know, you grabbed
Canna,
Sterling,
Marte.
Canna, Marte, all these guys, you got nothing for them. Granted, Marte came over in a late season trade last year,
but it was helpful.
But it was a situation last year where they decided to go all in and just, came up empty. But when you have that many guys leave for free agency, I mean, that was always, and I'm glad they got what they got for Olsen and Chapman. But again, I think it really hurts to lose a lot of those guys and get nothing for them.
Yeah. And so, again, no surprise where they are. I think it was a surprise very early on when they were, I would say, overachieving. And again, that's 10, 15, maybe even 20 games in. Now we're closer to 50, and true colors are showing, and that's
expected.
Exactly. I don't think it's even shade at the A's. It's just, this is kind of where they were predicted to be.
You got a couple good stories there.
Yeah.
I mean, Jimenez closing has been fantastic. The Paul Blackburn story has been a lot of fun, but I'd imagine that's a guy you're going to try to get something for at the deadline, given that you're not going to be competing.
Right. And then the Giants we were addressing earlier in the National League West, which is really good, and you mentioned the Dodgers. They did lose yesterday, but they had a great month of May. Mookie Betts was incredible. The Padres are good. And again, they're playing, I think, still about 3 to 4 more weeks until Tatis will come back. He's supposed to come back late June. And then the Giants, 26 and 21. Nothing wrong with that, but that's behind what they were doing last year. And you and I were talking before the show, and it's been talked about. It's actually something that could happen as far as, not to the Giants per se, but someone that could be available. Young stud, incredible player, so much talent for the Washington Nationals. Juan Soto, who's only 23. They're dead last in the National League East. They moved on from Harper before.
Yep.
I can't believe they would move on from him, but if they are and are willing to do that, I would give up just about any and everything to get him, and he is the kind of guy you could have for 10 plus years.
Yeah, and that's just it. You acquire him at 23. You can sign him to one of those 12-year deals that we see guys signing right now, because you look at it by 35. Yeah, he'll be slowing down probably.
Yeah, but now the NL is DH. There's no issue with that.
There's so many different ways that contract can work, and to me, when you look at the guys under 25, I think Wander Franco's under 25, right? It's him and Juan Soto as the guys that I look. I mean, Tatis, obviously, Vladdy Jr., but I really.
But he's in that list of people.
He is, and he's already produced it at a high level in so many different ways. He's a fun player. I mean, I know ticket sales don't mean what they used to, but people will come to the ballpark to watch Juan Soto. And when you look at the Giants lineup now, if you insert him into that lineup that is overachieving, it's a complete game changer.
Yeah.
A complete game changer, and it's a game changer for the next 10 years. And if I'm Farhan Zaidi, I know they've played their own little version of Moneyball with the Giants, and it's worked really well, which isn't surprising given that Zaidi came up with the A's, and then with the Dodgers under Andrew Friedman, who of course constructed some of those great Rays teams that we saw for not a whole lot of money. And the Giants, when you look at their top 10 prospects right now, it's exactly what the Nationals want. They have one guy in their top 10 prospects, Elliot Ramos, that is at AAA. Everyone else is at single A or double A. You have a lot of guys that the Nationals can take, and they don't need to win now, that they can develop. I think the Giants are in a great position because they can also pay him. The Giants need to pull a trigger.
Well,
here.
in all the years that they were so good in the 2010s when they were winning every other year of the World Series, it was great pitching and that incredible infield.
Yep.
They've never seemed to have, they've put together an outfield all those years, but if you insert him into your outfield /D8, wherever you put him, just a humongous boost to the lineup. But that just solidifies that position, like I said, for a decade plus. And it's just, it's going to cost you a lot, but it's stuff that's likely not here. I don't know that the Nationals even want everyday players now.
Well, that's my point.
Yeah.
I don't think they do. You
may not compromise your lineup at all.
You don't sell off a 23-year-old superstar because you want to win now. You're doing that because you want to win 3 years from now, and you're basically looking to offload him because, A, you clearly don't want to pay him the money that he's going to command.
Right.
And B, it's like, okay, we need to restock this farm system. So if you're the Nationals, a package of Marco Luciano, Kyle Harrison, maybe Luis Matos, I mean, that's your 1, 2, 3 prospects for the Giants. I feel like that's worth it for a guy like Juan Soto.
Yeah, here's some of the numbers that Soto has done since, he came up at 19. And in that partial season, 22 homers, 70 RBI in his first year, batting just under 300. Then at 20, 34 homers, 110 RBI. I mean, he is so good. When he was 21, didn't play, but maybe a quarter of the season. No, that was the year. Okay, they had less games, only 50 games. 13 homers, 37 RBI. Last year, 29 homer, 95 RBI. He's a lower average this year, but his career average is 294. Batted 351 one year, won a batting title, has finished in the top 10 in the MVP the last 3 years.
Has a World Series ring. It was an important part of that World Series. Was it
so much?
Was
talent.
it one of those young guys that they had brought up and, hey, he was on that team? Did you know? No, he was a contributor.
Yeah,
a huge contributor at, I want to say, 19.
Yeah,
on a World Series championship team.
Well, and the other thing too about him is, plug and play into the lineup.
Sure.
It rounds out the lineup. It's going to make every other hitter around. Like in Washington, I feel like he's the target, so you can pitch around him a lot. The Giants, I don't feel like they have a bunch of feared bats, but they've got a bunch of professional hitters.
Correct.
That if you put Soto in the middle of that, and now all of a sudden, well, I'm not pitching around him because here's Longoria. And Longoria's not as good as Soto, but it doesn't matter. He's a proven hitter, professional hitter. Crawford, all the way down the line. All these guys, Flores, that just seem to get big hits. Well, those big hits will look even bigger with him in the lineup.
Yeah, and then you factor in, and this matters, and it really matters a lot in baseball, is chemistry, right? Mm-hmm. You're talking about one of the more loose clubhouses in the league, and he's a loose guy. He likes to get up there, and he likes to have fun. I think he'll fit in like a glove in that clubhouse. So you combine that factor, you now add the fun factor of the Giants and what they do. It's just, and I'm a Dodgers fan. I would love for them to go make this Juan Soto trade. I don't think they have the prospects that the Giants do to pull it off. If the Giants were to go all in.
If the Dodgers did it, my gosh.
Well, if the Dodgers do it, it's just unfair. And I can say that as a Dodgers fan. And they have an embarrassment of riches now. I don't even know what you call that. They're basically Jeff Bezos at that point, But I think if you're the Giants, I can't really think of a better fit right now for a guy like Juan Soto.
And I don't know enough about their farm system, but I can't imagine any of those guys being off limits, especially when you're going for someone that's 23. If he was 33 and you felt like he was the last piece, you're like, well, he's 23 that you could say he is going to be our best player for a decade.
Mm-hmm. I mean, they want Luciano, obviously, to be the heir apparent, and I think they feel like once Crawford is done, I mean, Luciano could be that guy for the next 10 years. But especially when it comes to prospects, we've seen it enough where, I mean, you have these guys that are like touted for years in these farm systems that come up in there okay. Mm-hmm. Look at the Giants. I mean, do you remember when Tony Turcotto was supposed to be the next great thing? That's all you heard for years, man. Yeah. Wait till Tony Turcotto gets to the bigs. Wait till Tony Turcotto gets to the bigs. He got to the bigs for a cup of coffee, and it just didn't work out. And again, there's several stories. That's one of recent memory locally I can think of. Soto's already established as a star at 23. There is no, hey, will this guy be good for the next 10 years?
Yeah.
This guy's going to be great. He's going to be one of the best players in baseball for the next 10 years. Make the move.
Yeah, and it's tough. I mean, again, I don't know. I don't think I know a Nationals fan.
You don't know a Nationals fan?
Do you?
No.
But I think about that organization. I mean, to have Soto, have Harper, man, when you have talent like that, you hope that that's the kind of guy. Look who we're going to have for the next 15, 20 years.
Well, isn't it amazing, especially when you put it in full perspective? You said Soto and Harper. Both guys will probably, I mean, obviously we saw, Harper's gone and had an MVP season in Philadelphia. Soto will probably be gone. They opted to pay Strasburg.
Right.
Of those three
and they
guys.
Had what? Scherzer. They had Trey Turner.
Yeah. I mean, Trey Turner won the batting title last year, was an MVP candidate. He's been great in Los Angeles this year. Scherzer is Scherzer. I mean, he has the oblique injury now, which really sucks. But prior to that, he was still lights out in a Mets uniform.
Right.
It's just crazy when you look at that 2019 World Series team, the amount of talent they had that they just said, we can't pay.
Right. And then now here they are dead last in their division, in a division that the Mets are dominating and they thought would be good with the Braves, who are the champs, and the Phillies. They've all kind of, Girardi's on the watch list of getting fired. It's just, man, that division is all Mets.
I look at that division. Obviously, we thought the Marlins was going to suck.
Yeah.
You knew the Nationals weren't going to be able to compete the way that they had been selling off star players.
Yeah.
I am really surprised with the amount of money and talent that has been spent and put in Philadelphia that they're just not good.
Yeah, and then Atlanta hasn't bounced back yet.
No, and you look, and Philly had Gabe Kapler managing them, and he managed them the mediocrity.
Right.
Joe Girardi is a World Series winning manager, as you know. He's managed them the mediocrity, and they have so much talent.
They do.
Just what a bust in Philly, man.
Yeah. So Giants, do it. Go after Juan Soto. See if he can be the difference maker for this year's team and really for years to come.
Yeah, for the next 10 years.
Yeah, that would be awesome. Now, speaking of the Giants, while we were away, one of the more bizarre stories happened in baseball, and it had to do with fantasy football. Yeah, I know you've heard about it. We got to get into that next.
Check out the Golf to Go Hour with The Carmichael Dave Show. The Carmichael Dave Show with Jason Ross on Sports 1140 KHTK.
I know what he said, and either it's true, there was a lot of money involved in it. I did send a GIF in the group chat that was making fun of the Padres. In the group chat, there was more than one Padre. There was maybe 4 or 5 that I'm kind of close with a couple of them, and it was supposed to be a friendly thing, just making fun of they were playing bad and just talking back and forth. And yeah, I mean, he did not like that and responded, "Jock, I don't know you well enough to make any jokes like this." And yeah, so then I wrote back, "Was meant to be all fun and games. No hard feelings. Sorry if you took it that way." And then about 2 weeks later, after like week 4 or 5, he ended up leaving the league, and there's been no communication since. But like I said, it is true. I did send a GIF making fun of the Padres, and if I hurt anyone's feelings, I apologize for that.
Jock Peterson explaining the story that was really going around for a while over the weekend.
What did the 5 fingers say to the face?
What?
Slap.
How about holding on to that if you're Tommy Pham, by the way?
Dude, and when I couldn't find what I thought was funnier. The fact that he held on to that for over 200 days and was waiting to see Jock Peterson.
Yeah, to slap him. So the anger was there.
By the way, Tommy Pham no longer plays for the Padres, plays for the Reds.
Yeah.
Or the fact that, like, Peterson sends the GIF, and like he said, it's a fantasy league with a lot of money on the line, which I'd imagine.
I love that was admitted too.
Yeah, when it's pro players, I'm sure they're not giving $50 entry fees.
No, and the fact that he could just leave the league.
That was the funny part to me. I'm like, dude, did he send the GIF and Tommy Pham got so mad he just said, screw it?
Yeah, I'm gonna give up this money or take my money. Like, what? How does he just leave a league?
I don't know. Like, and apparently, like, Tommy Pham was like upset because Jock like misused the IR in their league or something.
Which I guess wasn't there even a story like one of the fantasy experts like Matthew Berry or something came out and said, no, technically Jock, like, okay, we don't need a full breakdown, but he's like, the way he said, he's like, one. He did it properly.
Yeah,
and it's like, okay. And Pham, even just there were so many layers that kept coming out about this story that Tommy Pham was explaining, like, look, I'm almost like a professional at this. Like, he bets apparently a lot and he spends money in Vegas. Okay, whatever. But he was really serious about it, enough to slap him, get a 3-game suspension, and Jock Peterson's almost like, dude, what's going on here?
Well, because, and I get, the Padres were struggling last year. Tommy Pham was on that team. That clubhouse was not in a good place mentally. So in the moment, I'm sure he didn't like that. But it's like, when you really take a step back and look, it's like, all right, dude, he sent a GIF of your team with a huge payroll underperforming. Like, there are worse things in the world. He didn't wish poor things on your children or something. He sent a GIF.
I think it's
it's
funny.
Childish.
Well, funny to me that most of us, but probably a lot of you out there listening probably play some form of fantasy sports, and most likely fantasy football is the most popular. But I just really enjoy the fact, and we've had A's players on, or maybe even Kings or different people that partake in other sports betting.
Absolutely.
And sometimes it's literally a friendly thing amongst the team. You hear about legendary things where there's heavy gambling going on planes. It's almost smaller factions, like smaller money in certain parts of the plane, but it sounded like this was a big deal.
We had Bobby Jackson in last week, on Tuesday, and he was talking about how, the per diem money was used. There's just a lot of card games, a lot of money owed, and there was a former player that we didn't name who still owed apparently a lot of money to other guys. Don't think Bobby Jackson's going to slap him when he sees him is my point.
Right.
And you look at Tommy Pham, and here's the other side of this too. I know Tommy Pham, for most of you, is probably not a household Major League Baseball name because, let's face it, there's only about 10 at this point. Tommy Pham is one of the best players on the Reds this season. It's not like he's having a great year. He's hitting .233, 5 home runs, I think 18 RBI. The Reds aren't very good, although they've played much better as of late. You've now lost one of your best players for 3 games, a series essentially, because of a fantasy football GIF joke. How do you explain that to your teammates?
Well, and the best part about it is, and he did it in a serious nature. I'm talking about Jock Peterson, but but in a Jock Peterson way, where he was asked about it, and then when he goes into the detail, all right, guys, here's what happened. And he literally lays out, like, I put a guy, like, it could have just been, hey, we had a miscommunication over our fantasy football league. But I had a guy that was injured that I put on the injured list that he didn't think I followed the proper protocol. And it was just such a funny explanation to hear from a Major League Baseball player to reporters. And he really went all in and explained what happened.
And if you know Jock Peterson, that's just his nature. He's a very laid back dude. He likes to go out there and have fun, as you can see.
Yep.
But he's also the type that will give you the full context of what is going on. And I thought about that too, where I'm like, all right, if another grown man in a Major League Baseball game, or any sport for that matter, comes up and slaps me in the face. I'm going to want you guys, you being the media and the fans, to know why this happened and how ridiculous it was. Because prior to that knowledge, you would have thought like he did something to Tommy Pham. Like maybe he made a comment about his family, like something like, wow, Jock Peterson must have really done something for another grown man. And Tommy Pham is a vet. Tommy Pham is 34 years old. He's been doing this a while. To come up and slap you. And then when you hear Peterson tell the story, it makes Tommy Pham look like an idiot.
Oh, it does. And that's why I don't know if I hope this, but I don't know if there was other texts that weren't shared, like wait till I see you next time or something like that.
It doesn't sound like it.
It doesn't either, because all you see is that footage from way back behind like home plate when they're in the outfield and you see the slap. But I'm like, the interaction seems so short that it's just different than like, hey, Jay, it's a slap. Like,
boom.
Wait, did somebody say, like, where's my money? Or you, it just didn't, it seemed like it went too fast that he was just hanging on to that for all that time.
They said, I think the article I read, there was 232 days between the GIF and the slap.
Yeah.
So it's very obvious that Tommy Pham had that game circled on a calendar
For sure.
the minute schedules were released.
Yeah. And for him, I mean, again, a slap, it didn't look that bad, whatever. I wonder if he goes, it was worth it to get a 3-game suspension.
Well, again, there's two ways to look at that. It's, I play for the Cincinnati Reds, who cares?
Right.
Or like, man, I really let my teammates down.
Yeah.
I'm guessing, just given the evidence that's laid in front of us, Jason, that's all we have, that Tommy Pham said, hey, I play for the Reds, who cares?
Yeah.
Like, do you think if Tommy Pham plays for the Yankees that he does that?
I don't think so.
Like, if he's playing for a team that's competing, that's not a cellar dweller, he's probably not risking a 3-game suspension.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like his anger already was established when he left the league. Like, I'm taking my money, my ball, and going home. I'm done with you guys, and I hate the way this was handled. You guys run a sham of a league. I'm out. Okay. I'm almost like, I don't even want to talk to anybody else about this league ever.
If you're Cincinnati and you suck, you're not winning this year, do you release a guy like that? Like, is that the kind of guy you want in your clubhouse?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know what kind of guy he is besides that, but that's bizarre.
Statistically, he's one of their best players.
Yeah.
And it's not saying much when you look at his numbers, but I think he even leads the team in, like, on-base percentage.
Well, and I think it's one of those things that, you know, if anybody's been in any kind of fantasy league, hopefully you get it down to the people that are – there's maybe always someone like, who's this guy? But then they're in the league one time.
I'm the who's that guy.
No, you're not.
No, I've actually been in a long-time fantasy league. Yeah.
But you've pared it down to the people that kind of get each other. There's always some quirks in there, but it's like, okay, this is the way our league is run.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
No, and so I think we've all learned a few lessons here. Number 1, don't anger Tommy Pham.
Yep.
Number 2, don't invite Tommy Pham to play in your fantasy football league. And number 3, if you slap another man during a Major League Baseball game, you will get a 3-game suspension. So if you're in a pennant race, you're trying to get the wild card, hold back on that one.
Well, and
if you play for a crap team, feel free.
Yeah, go for it. Swing away. Swing away. I think what's great, too, is we now know, and we've already known this, but that athletes like to gamble, too, in their own way, whether it's in their sport, the other sport. I used to love some of that talk that we'd have with the A's, especially like the bullpen guys or pitchers that would just have different ideas, different concepts, think like what they would do in basketball, what they could do in football, and they have a lot of idle time, and so they're thinking about how they would compete in other sports.
I think the interesting part about that is, and it kind of ties into this, and I've always noticed this, and luckily in my career, I've done both music and sports, so I've seen both sides, and this kind of is akin to this. It's like athletes always want to be something that outside of the sport they play, and you see a lot of it musically. A lot of athletes want to be musicians.
And vice versa.
And then vice versa.
Yeah.
You get the Drakes of the world who it's like, if you've ever seen that picture of him in like a full Kentucky warm-up suit in the locker room watching game film with the team, it's one of the funniest things I've still ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
And again, there's athletes that a lot of people don't know that will sit in like a recording studio in a very similar fashion and try to fit into that. But yeah, and how these guys basically, I guess it might just have to do with the fact you probably get a level of boredom doing the same thing all the time.
Probably, and you've achieved the highest level.
Sure.
You've made it there, and you know you can show up, I guess, and be successful.
Yeah, and I always wonder, you look at a guy, a Deion Sanders or a Bo Jackson, right? Those two sports stars, if maybe being able to kind of be able to do both so you're not getting burnt on one kind of help prolong their careers. Obviously, I mean, Bo injury derailed him, but Deion played a long time, man.
He did.
He did, and he was good at both. I mean, he was great at football. But it was. And Deion was a good baseball player.
Yeah, and then there was always the stories like Deion's playing in this game, then taking the helicopter to get to this one in time. Who was the other one? That was Brian Jordan.
Oh,
played football and baseball.
Falcon and Braves, right?
Yeah, I used to really enjoy when they were and those guys were good at both.
Yeah, Brian Jordan, I mean, I remember I think one season he played in L.A. with the Dodgers. He was probably their best hitter in that lineup in 03.
Yeah.
And then he was a decent football player. I wonder if we will ever see a two-sport athlete again. I've still theorized that I think Kyler Murray, especially kind of how volatile he seems to be with certain situations, could just tell football, 6 years from now after he's made some money, like, hey, I'm going to go try this baseball thing. But I don't think we'll ever have in-season two-sport athletes again.
Yeah, where there's literally like a baseball playoff game while they're playing a game Sunday, and then they fly like that.
Correct. I don't think you're going to see Kyler Murray have a game on Sunday afternoon and then fly to Oakland for a 6:40 playoff game that night.
I hope we do someday. I don't know if it's Kyler Murray, but somebody.
I mean, he'd be the most logical one right now because if I'm not, he wasn't taken number 1 overall by the A's, but he was a top 10
I think he was their
pick.
first round pick, though,
I think
right?
he was a top 10 pick.
Yeah. With thoughts of being a big part of what they're doing going forward. Yeah. Wow.
Sorry, Billy.
Yeah. Well, the
Could use him now, couldn't they?
Yes. Put him in the lineup. They get more fans out there, too, for sure.
No kidding.
All right. We got to get into some of the NBA. We have one team that was eliminated. It was the Miami Heat. Kind of a little post-mortem on Miami. What's next for the Heat? Still have a mock draft coming up in the next hour. The Lakers have a new coach, 3 for Mandis. Busy next hour, all coming up here on KHTK.
Sacramento. KYMX HD2, Sacramento.
We are the home for the Kings, Raiders, the NFL, and the A's.
We are Sports 1140 KHTK.
Sort of a weird face, kind of unattractive.
Yeah!
It's the Carmichael Dave Show.
Come on. Let's wake up.
With Jason Ross.
He is wise.
The only local sports talk show that helps you get through your morning commute. The Carmichael Dave Show with Jason Ross on Sports 1140 KHTK.
I thought it would have been an incredible storyline, Jimmy to pull up and hit that three, and I love that about Jimmy. That was the right look, and I just thought, as it was leaving his hand, I thought for sure that was going down. Good, clean look. It's definitely better than anything that we could have designed, and it's just a shame that it didn't end that way.
That's the Miami Heat head coach Eric Spoelstra talking after Game 7, in which the Heat were eliminated by Boston. Heat got off to a terrible start in that game, rallied late. I mean, an incredible rally. And that three look by Jimmy Butler in transition would have put the Heat ahead by one, would have given us even more drama to close. But I agree with Coach. I think it was a good look. Yeah, we could debate it, argue it, see if they could have done something differently. But, Jay, now it's next. What's next for Miami? Because a really good season. I think the Eastern Conference over the last 2 years or so has gotten better and better. I still think the conference, just top to bottom, actually now may be better than the West.
It was this season for sure.
And I had felt all along, I might be changing this as we get closer to the actual start of the finals, but I had said when Boston played Milwaukee, I thought the winner of that was not only going to win the East, but was going to win the championship.
Mm-hmm.
Because I thought the East collectively was just better than the West. But now that I don't know, I really am struggling to pick a winner between the Warriors and the Celtics. I know the Warriors are favored, but I think that's really, really close.
Yeah, the Warriors are favored, but they're not favored by a large margin.
I think they're favored because they've done it.
Sure.
I think that's why.
They have the experience, and I agree with you. I don't think they're necessarily a better team than Boston. Boston is a better defensive team than the Warriors for sure. While the Warriors,
they're good defensively, though.
They're good defensively, and the Warriors are the better offensive team, but they're not like significantly better offensively. The Celtics have firepower on offense too that can run with those guys, and then when you combine the defense, I flip-flopped on this one. I think it goes 7. I've had my moments where I'm like, I think the Warriors will get it for, again, kind of the established reasons of you got that 3 of Thompson, Green, and Curry that's looking to get at least one more ring.
Right.
But then you look at Boston, and it's just like the run they've gone on since, around late January.
Yeah, it's not a mistake.
It's not a mistake, and they knocked off the defending champion, and then you knock off the best team in the East this year. Like, it's kind of hard to bet against them.
Well, and a team, too, that no one wanted to play in Brooklyn first. I mean, their run has been incredible.
Yeah, no, they've
had to do.
They've been fantastic. So, again, I flip-flopped. Right now, I'm going to go Boston, but I'm not going to say I feel good about it.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. Like, it's just I'll probably change 2 more times before we get to Thursday. But as far as the Heat, they were hoping to be the team here. They're not. Let's do a little postmortem on them. Part of what they could probably think, and Pat Riley's not let's just sit here and settle, because he always tinkers, and I think that's great. And generally does it right. Like the couple of bold moves here over the last couple of years to get Jimmy Butler, this last year to get Kyle Lowry. I think with Butler, Bam Adebayo, Tyler Hero, who's the one that's kind of due for an extension, Kyle Lowry, they know that they've got a good core, a good coach, the great culture, and they will be a team to be reckoned with. It's weird that the imbalance of 2 years ago they made the bubble finals, and Jimmy Butler did an amazing job there. And then last year they were out in round 1. Then this year they bounced back to be a 1 seed.
Last year they were really beat up on the injury front all year long, which I think that was probably their biggest deterrent. But, you also had last year, the difference in this year, it doesn't really show too much in stats. There's a couple, especially in points. I think he averaged 5 more points per game this year. But Tyler Hero 2022 versus Tyler Hero 2021 is night and day different. He was not good last year. They said he was distracted the whole season.
Like they were thinking about moving on from him.
Oh, yeah.
And here he comes out and has just a complete
He wins the
turnaround.
6th man of the year. It reflected more what we saw his rookie year, where people were, dropping their jaw at how good he was and how did this guy fall this late in the draft. and you're back to that Tyler Hero, which really matters. I thought Miami was a finals team this year if they're not injured. I think if you were to match them in Boston, and again, you can't do this, obviously, injuries matter, but that team, when healthy, I still think is the best team in the East. I think they warranted getting that number 1 seed, and I think had they been fully healthy or at least healthier, I think we're talking about Miami in the NBA Finals.
Yeah, I mean, I know at times, especially with injuries, they're starting Max Strus, they're starting Gabe Vincent. When you're thinking that's probably Victor Oladipo, Kyle Lowry, Tyler Hero in some way, shape, or form. Markieff Morris, they never really utilized as much. So they've got some decisions to make on the extension for Hero. Victor Oladipo, though, is up.
I don't think he'll be back.
Yeah, that's someone they could either go over the luxury tax to keep or move on from. PJ Tucker, I think, has a...
I think he have one more year on PJ.
Yeah, I think it's his option, which I think,
he's an older guy, though.
He'll likely... I mean, he chose to leave a champion in Milwaukee to go here, so I think he'll stay. There's fringe pieces like Dedmon and other things that they can move off of. But can they add... Like, they do a good job of finding some of these other guys that contribute to their main core.
But doesn't that speak to... and we say culture, and Doug, it's funny, Doug was in on Monday last week, and David asked him about culture, and Doug had kind of stopped him. He's like, we have to stop talking about culture. We need to start talking about environment. The environment breeds the culture. And I think Miami is a great litmus test there, where it's the environment. What Pat Riley has always been really good at is establishing stars. Pat Riley's always had stars. Then again, when you look at the markets he's been in, LA, New York, Miami, those are easy markets to attract stars. But it is hard to get them still, but he has some advantages there. Where he's always been great is putting guys, going out and finding the Tyler Heroes, going out and finding the Max Strus, going out, prior to it was, Kendrick Nunn was undrafted and had a great rookie year.
Right.
He finds guys that fit roles that they need in Miami, and they get people to buy in. And I think that's what really, to me, that's what separates good teams from great teams. Is a good team and a great team will have star players, but it's finding guys that can go fit those roles and fit them to a T and come out 82 games in a season and know every night what they're going to do. And they don't try to do more or less unless asked to. They put the ego aside and they just play the role. And Pat Riley is a genius in doing that.
Yeah, Miami has the combination of, that's what the Spurs used to do. Like, where did they find this guy?
Yes.
Miami does that with the combination, too, of the work ethic and the demand that Tibbs would have, but Tibbs would burn people out. Like, Miami apparently has, like, the strictest regime as far as conditioning, and they weigh everybody to make sure everybody's, staying fit. But it's worked, or there's enough of a give them some time. I don't know. They found the balance, I think. And what I loved is that a guy like Jimmy Butler said, no, this is where I need this.
Yeah.
I want to be pushed. I need this behind me to get me going. And obviously he played for Tibbs, so he probably liked that. Not everybody's cut that way.
No.
But he wanted that, and he's going to Miami, and Jimmy Butler's just really flourished.
Jimmy Butler wants to win, and Jimmy Butler knows the type of environment he needs to be in to win. And it's funny when we talk about, because again, we talk about environment. You just mentioned all these regimented things that the Miami Heat organization requires players to do. They buy in. And Miami has put that structure in place. And when you put a structure in place and it's a proven thing, it's the same thing with the Spurs. When that is there and established, guys will go there because they know, hey, we're going to go here and not mess around. We look at the Sacramento Kings. It's the complete bipolar opposite, right? What did we hear in exit interviews all year? Structure.
Yeah,
we need structure.
we
need structure. Right there is the blueprint. I'm not saying you can just go copy that blueprint and everything will be hunky-dory. But you see the blueprint of structure that these organizations need to sustain winning for long periods of time.
Yeah, and I know, speaking of Doug, I know he's always felt this way, but championship environment, I think that's exactly what Pat Riley and Alonzo Mourning, that whole group brings, and that's what they demand. Now, they didn't win a title, but you always feel like Miami's going to be in the mix. They're going to compete. It reminds me of the 20-year run when Utah was always good. It's like,
structure.
Got to play Utah. Like, it's never an easy night. It's a Tuesday in November. It's like the Jazz are here. Like, you know you're in a game, as opposed to, where are they in the season? They don't float. They go. They attack. And Miami's that kind of team.
Right. And again, but it goes back to the structure they had in Utah. And it's kind of a similar thing to what we're talking about with Miami here. You knew you had Stockton and Malone. Those were the superstars of that team. That was well established. But especially in those late 90s, and you look at the runs those teams made, the role players on those teams knew their role in Utah and were so good. And I always like to look at it from the standpoint, when those role players left Utah, they didn't do anything else in the NBA. What did Howard Isley do post his Utah run?
Yeah.
Nothing. Shandon Anderson was great in Utah. What did he do post Jazz run? Nothing. Greg Ostertag was a solid NBA center in Utah. What did he do post Utah? Nothing. It's because they get into these environments where they can play a certain role and flourish in them. Yeah. Then when you ask them to go to other places and be, quote unquote stars, they can't do it.
Yeah. And I don't know if Miami's goal will then be to, I don't know that they need another star. They would welcome that.
Oh, I'm sure.
But it's, can they find another, who was the other guy? Caleb Martin.
Yes.
People that just, as the year goes on, contribute, are factors, make them better. And I feel like they're going to work around the edges here and hope for a healthier team.
Well, and I think that's the big thing, because I still think Jimmy is playing at a high level.
Yeah.
I don't think Jimmy Butler's going to have a massive decline next year. Bam Adebayo is still rising. He's a young player in this league. It is picking around the edge. It is the perimeter guys. I mean, I know he fell out of the rotation in the playoffs, but Dwayne Dedmon gave them decent minutes for a year and a half. I think really what they got to do is, again, find those guys and fill some of those holes they may need in a role player role. If I'm being nitpicky, I don't know if Kyle Lowry's a guy I want to rely on anymore, and it just strictly is because he's up there in age now, and this year I think he really showed it.
Yeah.
He was decent during the regular season, but when he got hurt in the playoffs, he was unplayable at the end of that series, Jason, but it was also, how do you tell a veteran all-star that has a ring, hey, we got to sit you? That has to be a very difficult job for a coach.
It is, because you also know, like, okay, can he just give it to me in this game 7?
Right.
Like, this could be a game where we go, thank goodness we had Kyle Lowry. Now, it wasn't the case, but that's, his resume suggests that he could do that.
Well, especially after you watch Jimmy Butler really struggle in the series and then have that game 6 of a lifetime, come back in game 7. He was really good in game 7 too. It kind of gives you hope that, okay, Kyle's cut from a similar cloth. Can we just need one game out of you. Yeah. They just couldn't get it out of him.
Yeah, Miami's going to look back on that series and go, wait, we lost 3 games at home?
Yeah.
And they won game 1.
And game 7.
Yeah.
After what they did in game
Boston.
6.
Yeah, winning 2 in Boston is great. You would think, okay, we might have to win in Boston once. Oh, we got 2? We're probably going to win this series.
Right.
They lost 3 times at home.
It's crazy.
All right, we've got more to get to on this series. The NBA Finals is almost here. And when you think of the NBA Finals, what first comes to mind? That, amongst other questions, coming in 3 for Madness next.
Sports 1140.
KHTK.
Sure. 3 questions, 3 answers. It's 3 for Madness on the Carmichael Dave Show with Jason Ross. Question 1.
That's right. It is time for 3 for Madness. Jason Ross, Jay Mars, Carmichael Dave. It's off today. He's back with us tomorrow. Jay Mars, what do you have for us today on 3 for?
Well, you've seen how both Jock Peterson and Tommy Pham handled their fantasy football situation. Which of those 2 would you rather have in your fantasy football league?
Oh, it's not Tommy Pham.
No, right?
I mean, I think this is an easy one. I guess Jock Peterson. I mean, I know I would say I'd take it seriously, but I'm not Tommy Pham in fantasy sports.
You slapped me last year during our pick'em.
But I think it's weird when people I'm just not a trash talker, I guess. So, like, it's week 1, and if you beat me and you're like, you wouldn't do this generally anyway, but someone chirps at you and it's like, okay, like, we're picking other players. Like, were you a genius? I just think that's all pretty funny. But of this question, clearly I'm not taking Tommy Pham. Get him out of here.
No, why? Nobody wants a Tommy Pham in their football league.
No.
You like to play football, and when guys chirp, it should be, and it seemed like Jock Peterson, from his story, which I believe, it was a good-natured chirping.
Yeah, it was playful. Yeah.
And that's how it should be. If you are going to chirp in fantasy football, it should never get to the point where, like, friendships are ruined.
Exactly. Yeah, that's going too far. Come on, we're just playing for either – most people are playing for some low amount of money, I'm guessing. Now, if you're in one of those super serious, heavy – I don't know, I've never been in one of those things.
leagues.
Then more power to you. But I feel like that's where friendships could be hurt.
Sure. Again, I play in a football league, in a fantasy league. I've played it now for, 15 years.
Mm-hmm.
It's a $100 buy-in.
Okay.
Everybody's friends.
Right.
There has never been an issue. Every once in a while, you get a trade proposed that people are like, that's one-sided. We're calling BS.
Yeah.
But it's maybe happened 3 times.
Yeah.
Whereas it seems like Tommy Pham is the type of guy that nobody wants to play with outside of the whole takes it too serious.
Right.
Complaining about he's abusing the IR.
Yeah.
Is he, or is he using it correctly and you're just butthurt?
Yeah, and Tommy probably wants to raise the ante every year. Like, no, let's play for 10,000.
Tommy Pham is the guy that comes with 30 mass changes every season, and then when people votes it down, like, says derogatory things about them.
I'm out of here.
Yeah.
I'm going to start my own league. Go ahead. Find the people that you want to play with.
The all Tommy Pham league.
Yes. Where he drafts himself.
Tommy Pham, number 1 overall to Tommy Pham.
Yes. All right, question 2.
Question 2.
When you think of the NBA Finals, what first comes to your mind?
So I think I'm going to try to predict your answer because I think this becomes generational. It's like, when did the finals first kind of register? What do you think? To me, it's when I was pretty young and I'm watching Lakers and Celtics in the 80s. Like, that's what I think of the NBA Finals. Now, there's other, remnants of this, like the Jordan runs, incredible. Even recently, Cleveland and Golden State 4 straight years. But I feel like Bird, Magic, Boston, LA feels so iconic. 2 of the greatest franchises ever. And they met since a couple times. But to me, it's the 80s Finals, which either had Boston or LA, and a lot of times had Boston and LA. That's kind of where I go.
So what did you think my answer was going to be? Since
the Bulls.
It's not, actually. Oh. It is not. I mean, first of all, the first thing that comes to mind is the Larry O.B. because it's so iconic.
Okay.
But when I look at it from a basketball perspective, I'm very similar to you. It's Lakers, Celtics, it's the 80s. And here's why. So I didn't watch those series when they aired in real time, mainly because I think they played in 85, I wasn't born yet. 84, I wasn't born yet. 87, I was 2.
Yeah.
So I didn't watch them in real time, but I grew up in love with basketball, So I used to rent the season review video cassettes.
Right.
And I would obsess and I would watch them nonstop. So I probably watched and digested more of 80s basketball than I actually did 90s when I was watching it in real time.
Interesting.
So that's I loved that whole rivalry. I loved the storytelling of it, how it really kind of brought the league into prominence, so to speak. So, yeah, for me, it's always going to be Celtics and Lakers. And, yeah, we talk about the 80s. Obviously, people know about the 60s and the Celtics winning every time. But that 08 and 2010 series were really good, too.
Of the Lakers Celtics.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The 08 one, I loved it because, the Celtics beating the Lakers, obviously, at that point, I think we were all just like, anybody, please beat the Lakers. That's still fresh from the Kings-Lakers days. But 2010, man, as upset as I was that the Lakers won, that was a great 7-game series. That went back and forth. Wasn't Boston up 3-2 and the Lakers won the last 2 games?
I believe so.
I believe so.
I know they won Game 7, obviously, but I don't.
I want to say Boston went up 3-2. They won Game 5 in Boston, and the Lakers won 2 very close games. I think 2 close games in 6 and 7. I know 7 was close. Boston
7 was close, and wasn't it?
Boston led for a good portion of that game.
And wasn't it something like 83-79?
Yeah,
or something
it was
just
a battle.
Ugly, terrible shooting, and just I hope we have a iconic, because I think this postseason has been just okay.
This postseason's been trash. You're gonna be nice and call it okay. Yeah. It's been trash. Outside
Too many
of
blowouts.
That's been it. There's been no drama.
Moment? What would be the defining moment right now?
To me, The biggest moment I can think of, or moments, it's Jimmy Butler going for, I think we went 45 in an elimination game on the road. That's a big deal. It's the Marcus Smart to Jason Tatum game, one of the Brooklyn series.
And that was the first Saturday of the opening round.
Correct.
Sunday. One of the two.
It was game one.
Game one. Is that our only buzzer beater?
I can't off top of my head.
Well, we had the one in Milwaukee that Horford put back that was late.
Right. But to me,
and I know the Warriors and Grizzlies, like game one or two was really good. But anyway,
and that was a good series. I thought overall that was probably the best Warriors series. To me.
I know a lot of people talked about the Memphis, Minnesota. I'm like, no, the series wasn't very good.
No.
It was competitive. It's just I'm like, this isn't great
But
basketball.
I liked Warriors Memphis. I thought that was one of the better series we've had, and it's a low bar. We're reaching, and then the other one I could come up with, it just as far as memorable moments, was Phoenix laying that egg in Game 7.
I was exactly what I was thinking of, just how bad. I mean, credit to Dallas, but how bad Phoenix was in the deciding game at home.
I turned that game on in the second quarter with I hadn't looked at my phone or anything. We had just gotten home.
Yeah.
And I was just in disbelief.
Yeah.
And then watching them come out in the third quarter and just look so flat, I was like, what the hell is happening here?
Just bizarre. I agree. I think those are some of them. I mean, that's
about it.
I think it's been kind of nondescript. So I hope the finals can save it all.
The injury to Gary Payton.
Yeah.
And that play, the finals can save it I think this is our best shot at a really good series because I think there's a lot of just these teams are matched even in different areas.
Yeah.
So I
hope so.
I think we're going to get a good NBA Finals, but given the precedent that these playoffs set, again, not feeling great about saying that.
Yeah. All right, question 3.
Question 3.
The one thing missing from Steph Curry's career is a Finals MVP. If he wins that this year, does that move him any higher on your all-time greats list?
I don't know that he needs it, but I guess it's missing from the resume. Steph's there to me. Like Steph, I mean, I guess when people say he's top 10, then you start to list the top 10. I think in that ESPN top 75 or whatever, when they did that at the All-Star, he was like 11 or 12. And I feel like his career's not over. So he's going to just keep moving up because he's already the greatest shooter, most three-pointers. Where's he going to end up total scoring? How many rings? I don't know if he'll get another MVP, but he has 2. So he's checked all of these incredible boxes, been on one of the greatest teams of all time, if not the greatest. The one Finals MVP that maybe he had his best chance at, Iguodala got, and I think LeBron almost won because even in a losing effort. And then KD, I think, was the difference in the 2 finals that they also did win. But Steph is really, they need all of the pieces, but without him, it doesn't happen. So, I mean, his career is iconic. It's legendary. He doesn't need a Finals MVP to move him up anymore, but I guess if he gets it, that's something we'll be talking about.
Yeah, I think it's just kind of one last trophy to grab. Yeah. It's just kind of the one thing you don't have.
Right.
I don't think it's a needle mover, though.
No.
I don't think it changes our perspective on Steph Curry. I think when Steph is all said and done and he's up there giving his Hall of Fame speech, I don't think we're going to see a bunch of think pieces about, man, the one guy that couldn't get that Finals MVP.
Right.
Because the Finals MVP is just such an interesting award because it's the one MVP award that it's the spectrum of who's won it is so different. You have your all-time greats that have been your Finals MVPs, but then you have your role players, your Andre Iguodalas, your Chauncey Billups. And I mean, Chauncey Billups was an all-star in the league. Don't get it wrong. But we don't look at him in the same, breath that we do with the Michael Jordans, the Magic Johnsons, the Kareems, the Larry Birds.
Yeah, and the narrative isn't this, Jay, where Steph's been poor. And he's been fine. He's been good.
Correct.
The one year he really could have won it also with KD, but they picked KD.
Right.
So it's not like, well, they won despite Steph Curry. He's been good in the finals.
And he doesn't strike me as the type of player who gets hung up on whether or not he wins the Finals MVP. I've always wondered this, though, as a player. What would you have rather won? The regular season MVP or the MVP award in whatever your championship, whether it's World Series, Super Bowl, NBA Finals?
That one, because that comes with a ring.
Yeah, well, and that's what I thought. It's like, man, do you want to be known as you were the best player in the league for 82 games in the regular season? Or does it matter to a player more to have said, hey, I was the best player in the championship series or game?
Just because it gets you a ring, but the one that actually would be pretty cool, like if you're thinking selfishly, if you had a bad moment, like the year LeBron lost in 7, I think, to the Warriors, or 6, and he almost won the Finals MVP.
15, yeah.
Yeah, like that'd be pretty cool to say, like, I was that good.
Mm-hmm.
Our team lost, and I was the Finals MVP.
Yeah, and the only precedent we have there is in 1969, the first year the award came out, Jerry West won it. And while you can't believe what you see in winning time because it's so sensationalized, I would wonder if you asked Jerry West, like, hey, did it mean a lot to be the best player in a series you didn't win? Mm-hmm. Something tells me competitors probably hate the idea of an MVP trophy in a series they lost.
Oh, I'm sure they do. Competitors, yeah.
Yeah. I would imagine, like, LeBron, had he been awarded the 2015 Finals MVP losing to the Warriors, he would have been. I think they'd rather not win it.
Yeah.
I really do.
Yeah, maybe. But
it's the silver medal theory.
I think that's also one, like, 25 years down the line when he and Draymond are talking trash. Like, I was so good that I won the Finals MVP even when you won something like that.
And then Draymond's just like, yeah, but
yeah,
he's just going to flash that ring.
Thank you for that additional ring.
It's the silver medal theory. You've heard this, right? Yeah. Where people prefer to win a bronze over a silver because they feel like silver means you lost the gold.
Right.
Whereas bronze, you actually have to win a match to win it.
I got on the podium.
Correct.
Yeah. Interesting. Steph, I don't think you need it, but you'll take it, certainly, if he gets the Finals MVP. All right, the Lakers have themselves a new coach, and it was someone the Kings were looking at. Are we going to be in the constant comparison between the two coaches? I guess we will. We'll talk about that next.
Sports 1140.
KHTK.
course, every morning. Nothing can top it.
It's the Carmichael Dave Show
I like this guy.
with Jason Ross on Sports 1140.
I know it's been tough for Kings fans to go through what we've gone through for, 16 years.
Why do you say that?
Every day. Life, running into people. When are things going to be different? I don't know. Hopefully soon. That's all I can say is hopefully soon.
Are you ever at the grocery store? I find this to be a thing over the last 16 years. If you're wearing Kings gear, most people ask kind of a similar question. So, what's up with the Kings?
Yes.
Are they good this year? No.
What's up? And it just depends on what time of year, when, where, what's up with the Kings? And such an open end,
Well,
how much time do you have? How much time do I have?
How much do you care?
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, okay, who am I talking to? What do they want to know? How much do I want to, throw out there? It's not sure. Or is it okay, we're going to be in a conversation for a few minutes?
Depending on my relationship with the person will usually depend on the length of the conversation. Right. But put it this way, most of the time it's people, again, asking me, again, just in a checkout line at the grocery store. It's someone trying to make small talk. Hey, how are the Kings this year? De'Aaron might be good one day.
Yeah.
They traded for Sabonis. That might be good. It's always might be.
Yes.
Or maybe. Or I hope.
Right. Well, and I think this coming year, to be determined, I think we're all excited about what could happen with the draft, and we're going to get into that. We're going to mock a mock draft coming up in our next segment as we continue to do that. But we're closing in on the NBA draft next month. Big decision for the Kings on whether they keep it, draft it, whatever they want to do there. But I think the other thing that generally happens, especially, Jay, when they just went through this coaching search, and I had that, what do you think of Mike Brown? I'm like, well, I like his credentials. I like a lot of what he represents. Tell me the roster. If the roster's loaded, Mike Brown's going to do great.
Yeah.
I think any coach would do great.
And if the roster's not loaded,
they're in trouble. Whether it's Mike Brown, whoever you say is the greatest coach of all time, Phil Jackson, Greg Popovich, coach to be named later, some young assistant, some future.
Right.
They're going to struggle. So I like some of the ways the roster is going towards, but it's not finalized. And unless they get considerably better, probably more things of the same are going to happen.
Yeah.
But one of the names they were looking at was Darvin Ham. And I understood why. I think there was a lot of teams looking at Darvin Ham. Apparently Charlotte was, a few others. So were the Lakers, and the Lakers landed on Darvin Ham. That is the coach of the future for the Los Angeles Lakers. And no disrespect to Darvin Ham when I say this. Darvin Ham's best chance to succeed is to have a healthy LeBron James and Anthony Davis. And if he does, I think he'll do just fine.
And a Russell Westbrook that could possibly find a way to actually fit in with this roster.
And or turns into something else.
Sure.
And if it's with the Lakers, fine.
And the Lakers put the right veteran pieces around those guys and role players. Correct. Darvin Ham will be very successful if that happens.
Yeah, I think they can turn it around. And I say turn it around. They weren't very good. They were awful last year, and they missed the playoffs. They were terrible defensively. Yes, they had injuries, but they were broken. And I think they could turn it around pretty quickly, though.
Yeah, they're the Lakers. They have the ability to attract players that, again, this team, how many straight years did they miss the playoffs? 7 or 8, and then they signed LeBron James.
Right.
They have that ability because they are the Lakers, where not cheating, obviously. They're not breaking any rules, but they have built-in factors about the organization and the location where they are that allow them to, quote-unquote, rebuild or retool faster than any other team in the NBA. It's just fact.
Yeah.
History has told us this multiple times. So I look at the Darvin Ham situation exactly how you put it. If they can retool correctly around Darvin Ham's going to be a great head coach in the NBA. Darvin Ham's going to have a lot of success. What I'm going to pull the remaining hair out of my head that I have is when we start comparing Darvin Ham's success to Mike Brown's success.
Just totally different
because
things.
It's going to happen. I'm going to throw this out there for everybody right now on May 31st. If the Lakers retool correctly, they are going to be so much better than the Kings next year. It's not going to be funny. And it will not be because of the head coaches.
Right.
And then you're going to get the, if the Kings would have hired Darvin Ham, they would be much better. I also want to throw this caveat out there because these things never get explored, and I don't know why, because it usually ends up this way. How do you or I know that Darvin Ham didn't want the Kings' job? I would say this. During the process of where they interviewed Darvin Ham, I would imagine Darvin Ham had an inclination that the Lakers were interested.
Mm-hmm.
If you were to poll 30 head coaches in the NBA and said, all right, you're going to Sacramento or the Lakers, what percentage, Jason, do you think is saying LA?
Right.
100.
Probably.
100.
Yeah.
So it's probably in Darvin Ham's head that he knows he's got an opportunity with the Lakers. Charlotte's probably a more intriguing opportunity than the Kings at this point. He interviewed for that job. So I hate the idea of, we could have had Darvin Ham. Could we?
Right.
Is that really a thing?
Well, and then the other part is until we finally, hear from Monty and Mike Brown when his season is done and they have their press conference. If we read the final candidates were Clifford, Mike Brown, and Mark Jackson, allegedly. So what's the common thread? They all had been head coaches. They all had defensive kind of backgrounds.
They all have won.
They all
in
have
some
won,
capacity.
Where the assistants who had never been head coaches was Ham, Hardy, and
Charles Lee from Milwaukee.
So I don't know if it was as simple as, and D'Antoni was on the list too. So there's 4 coaches. Now D'Antoni probably has more of the offensive resume. Anyway, you look at where the lean was. Someone that had been a head coach seemed to be more of a priority for this team. They kind of eliminated the 3 assistants. And maybe they will all be great. I don't know. Maybe the assistants eliminated themselves. We saw Kenny Atkinson on a list, then he wasn't on a list.
Yeah, and I believe Kenny Atkinson did remove himself and say, I'm not interested in Sacramento, going back to the Darvin Ham thing.
Yes.
Just because you interview a guy doesn't mean that they are dead set on your job.
Yeah, and if I'm them, I always interview with everybody.
Sure,
what
should.
does the Kings say? I'm going to pay you you're going to be the GM, head coach, we're going to pay you $10 million a year. Well, okay, all of a sudden I'm interested.
Also, it creates interest in your name around the league for other people. It's like, okay, if multiple teams are interviewing this guy for our head coach, for a head coaching vacancy, and we have one, we should probably give him a look too.
Yeah, and the same thing can be said. I just saw earlier today where, Jay, they were mentioning back in Charlotte, it looks like it's down to D'Antoni and Atkinson. Okay, 2 guys that were on the Kings list at some point. I still look at that in a good way where, okay, those are names that are also being coveted. The Kings were probably looking at the right pool. But are we going to compare D'Antoni and or Atkinson's record? It's unfair. They have a different roster.
And they're 2 completely different coaches. Mike D'Antoni's known more for, again, his offensive ways. He brings in defensive coordinators, which we're starting to see more of a trend in the league. But he's also a guy that is best suited for a veteran team, if you ask me.
Right.
Whereas Kenny Atkinson, the rap on him is not really a guy you want when you have a veteran-laden team. He's more of a developer of young talent, which they have a lot of in Charlotte. So not only is it not fair to compare resumes, it's not fair to compare styles, and what they fit matters for coaches too, believe it or not.
Yeah, and that's why we've seen Coach Kerr, who's in the finals, perfect example, comes into a Warrior team that he gives credit to Mark Jackson. They were more ready-made, and then Kerr did his part to help elevate that group. And then the last 2 years, was he a bad coach?
No.
Guys were hurt. He had a 15-win team 2 years ago.
Yeah.
They won 15 games.
And they're in the NBA Finals this year.
Yeah.
Something tells me Steve Kerr's not really the reason why they won 15 games and why they're in the finals this year.
Exactly.
He plays a part in it, obviously, but if we're sitting there thinking he's the lead role, you're out of your mind.
Yeah. So, I mean, Mike Brown's success will be contingent on the roster he's given, the development more so even of De'Aaron Fox, the health of Sabonis, what they do at 4, whether that's their pick or not, just all these things.
There are so many variables right now to what the Kings' record is going to look like next year. And we're not going to know the true, obviously, once the season starts, we'll have an idea. But we can't even, Jason, I'm still of the opinion this roster is going to look completely different than it did last year.
Yeah.
I think they really do need to make a lot of changes, especially when it comes to their role players. I think they're comfortable right now with Fox and Sabonis, but as we've seen with Monty McNair, if he feels there's an upgrade from either of those 2 guys, he'll make it.
Yeah. And I think based on what we've heard Monty say, everything is in this gets confused a little bit, and they could be blended together in a win now without mortgaging the future.
Correct.
If that makes sense. So it's a win now, but wanting to be good for 5 years or more.
They're not going to trade the number 4 pick for a veteran role player that's going to add 5 wins.
Right. No. If
They'll be better,
if
but
they trade 4, it's that piece is going to help them make the playoffs this year and in future years. That's at least the thought. Now, can that be achieved? Who knows? Now, that pick, it's an important one. They're picking at 4. We continue to mock a mock today. We look at Bleacher Report that's got an interesting twist. We'll tell you about it next. Well, we're almost there. We're almost to the NBA draft. Still got a little less than a month to go. June is tomorrow. And, of course, our draft coverage, 2022 NBA draft coverage, brought to you by Power Business Technology. Check them out online at powerbusinesscopiers.com. More and more intel going out there. More and more teams getting looks at these guys. And we're going to continue to mock the mock drafts. Everybody's putting mock drafts out there and try to give you different perspectives. Not all of these are going to be right.
No?
Yeah. And the good thing I would say...
Are we still looking for the perfect mock draft is what you're telling me? We haven't seen one yet.
I don't think anybody will be. But the good thing is that they might be right near the top for a while, maybe all the way up to the Kings. What I'm liking, though, and it doesn't really impact the Kings as much, at least as they're currently sitting at 4, I think this draft is actually really good.
Yeah, no,
Not
it's a
just
solid
3.
draft.
I think there's going to be a lot of good players coming out of this draft based on what I've looked at.
Yeah, and I think we're going to see... And you see it every year, so this is not me with some super scorching hot take, but we're going to, you hear always about the guys in the top 3. And right now that's Holmgren, Jabari Smith, and Paolo Banchero. Someone 4 through 15 is going to be a star.
Oh, for sure. And maybe even past 15.
Right.
That's the reality of, and sometimes when we talk about environment earlier or culture, however you say it, a good player that goes to the Warriors, that goes to Miami, that goes to Boston, is around great players, gets maybe a chance to develop. Jordan Poole is a great example.
Yeah.
Late lottery pick or late first round pick, and there's nothing really asked of him right away, and that's fine. Go to the California Classic, play a little bit, figure out your game. And I don't know, we don't even know what we have, but like we're not really worried about it because we didn't take you in the lottery, and we're not expecting 15 and 8 in year 1 because you're starting for us. Like, no, just. Well, this is what we do. This is how we play. Hey, here's Clay. Here's Steph. Here's Iguodala. Here's all these great players. And just kind of settle in. And sometimes when you put a player with talent on a great team that finds their way, it's an ideal fit sometimes to go later in the first round.
Absolutely. It's for some guys, it's a slow burn process. Right. You know, one who sticks out to me that it didn't make the All-Star team this year, but there was talk about him. It's small talk, but a guy like Michael Bridges, right? Taken, I want to say 8th, and nobody had him projected to be an All-Star level talent. I think people thought he was going to be good, but man, he has turned out to be one of the better players on the best team in the league this last year, at least record-wise.
Yeah, and it's like I said, it's environment where the Kings player, if they pick at 4, is where I know I'm going to feel that way. It's like, okay, the Kings, you're picking that high. You hope you're drafting an all-star. That's the hope, and that's a lot of pressure on that player and the organization.
No, I completely agree, and especially when it's the organization like the Kings, who, let's just face it, have not been known to have franchise stability. Players have come out and said it themselves. It's kind of the opposite effect of what you said, where you take a guy and you put him in a really good environment early on, and that can help really elevate. You take a guy that has a lot of talent and you put them in environments where there's no structure, it has the complete opposite effect.
Yes.
I think of a guy like Ben McLemore, to me, is always the guy I think of that. 4 coaches in 4 years, especially that year under George Karl in 2016, where it was like, you just knew Ben was never going to find his way because it was, hey, you're going to go start, play 7 minutes, then you're going to sit on the bench for basically the rest of the second half. Like, how do you develop a guy like that? And it's that type of just organizational imbalance that really hurts careers.
Yeah, 2 years to develop for Ben McLemore on I don't know at that time, a Spurs, Utah, Warriors, whatever team.
Just a team that had a good foundation.
Yeah, that wasn't even asking him to, like, you may not even play year 1 or 2.
No. And I'm not saying he would have turned out to be an all-star, even though I think he had the raw talent to be one.
Just a different career.
But could be a great role player. And despite, that King stint, which, again, I think they really screwed his development up, he's carved out a decent career for himself. Yeah.
Still playing.
Still collecting a check, right?
That's right. All right, let's mock a mock draft here. We've been doing this since we found out the Kings are picking 4 and trying to find just different perspectives. Today, Jay, we're looking at Bleacher Report. And this one was done by Zach Buckley of Bleacher Report.
Zach.
Good old Zach. At number 1, it's the Orlando Magic.
With the first pick, the Orlando Magic select
Jabari Smith. I think that's more and more common right now landing there. I don't know if they're going to stay there, pick him, but That seems to be the most common one I'm seeing right now at number 1.
I would say if I read 10 mock drafts, that seemed to be in 8 or 9 of them.
Yeah.
I'm still of the opinion. This is my draft hot take, my scorcher, that I still think it's going to be Chet Holmgren that goes 1. I just believe, and I tell people this, especially when you ask me, who do you think is going to be drafted by what team? I go off of the general manager and the precedent that they've set. So I know John Hammond runs the Magic. I know John Hammond has a long history of taking very lengthy, tantalizing type big men, whether that's Giannis, Thon Maker, John Henson, Mo Bamba. You see, there's a trend there. And I know they like Wendell Carter at the 5. I think Jabari and Chet can both slide in and play next to him at the 4. I just think I personally would take Jabari Smith. I'm telling you that I think he, to me, is the right now.
No matter what team you were, you'd take him.
I would
1.
take Jabari Smith because I think he is the best player available. That's me, though. But again, other guys, if it's close, they're going to go with, you got to look at what they've done in the past. And I think there is a closeness between those two as far as when you look at what their ceilings can be. You know, I think Chet Holmgren scares people because of his frame, but he does also do a lot of things that really intrigue a team.
Right. No, there's no doubt. I mean, the shooting, just the size, there's so much that a lot of people like for Jabari Smith. So that's who they have, this BleacherReport.com mock draft at number 1. Let's go to number 2.
With the second pick, the Oklahoma City Thunder select
Chet Holmgren from Gonzaga. So they go to the power forward center. Just, again, I don't even want to say issues. People just point to his size, his frame right now. Expecting him to add weight, he will, as everybody does in the NBA. But will that be productive weight? Will there be some future injuries? I mean, when you're already thinking about, like, frame and being injured and other guys, I feel like that's such a uncertainty. Could it happen? Of course. But if you're afraid, then I would never, like, if you're already thinking that, then I would never draft a big.
Sure.
If that's even on your mind.
Of course.
Like, look at some of the past bigs that have been hurt, then trade down and get something else.
Right. But also look at some of the past bigs that haven't been hurt.
Right.
And there's been question about their frame coming out, and they've been good.
Yeah.
Have we done a mock where those two aren't 1-2 in some capacity?
I want to say the week you were, maybe we had one.
Did Paolo move up?
Yeah.
Okay.
I believe it was Paolo Banchero, but we'll see.
Also, if Chet Holmgren does go to OKC at 2, do they have the skinniest front court in NBA history between him and Poku?
Yes. Yes, and it's not even close.
Like, they combined might weigh 200 pounds.
I still think they're a little bit of a wild card, too, just because of what they've done. OKC, meaning, like, okay, you at some point you need to cash in on some of these things, but they have so many picks. I don't know. They get the right trade offer from somebody. It's like, we'll move down to get either more picks or something else.
I could very much see a scenario, and, the Kings even, there's baby rumors out there that they might want to move up, that they could pull in Atlanta-Dallas type trade from a few years back and acquire another asset to move a few spots back. I think that's totally plausible at this point.
I do too. All right, let's go to number 3.
with the third pick, the Houston Rockets select
Paolo Banchero from Duke. Now, you were talking about he's my favorite player in the draft. Just me personally.
Overall?
Yes.
It's just the way he plays, the motor he has. Yeah, Paolo's really good.
He just, to me, like the first time I saw him at Duke, and then I've seen, wanted to watch more games and a little more things on film of him. One, he just looks like an NBA player. He's already built. He's already put together.
Well, I should say his strength at 19 is incredible.
He's another playmaker. I just think in this league, the way the league is going, you need, like Sabonis, like you just need more people that can do more things with the basketball, and that's what he could do. I think he's NBA ready, which is nice.
He's
too.
NBA ready for sure.
Certainly has some flaws. Not the best shooter. I think there's some defensive issues, but again, nobody's perfect in this draft. They never will be. But I like all of the elements to him, and I like what his fit would be with the team.
Yeah, I like Paolo Banchero a lot. I think whoever gets him is going to be really happy, and I think the things people focus on, the shooting, the defensive stuff, again, those are things that can be fixed at the NBA level. It's not like you're worried about him being some slog coming down the court.
Right.
You don't have to worry about those things. I also think, too, especially, and we call, like trade deadline, we call draft season. It's silly season because of all these things that come up. And I think the one thing I've really noticed, and you see it a lot in mock drafts, and people really harp on this because of it, is people get really focused on what guys can't do versus the good things they can do.
Right. Well, that's a 3 that we've seen in whatever order, but a lot of this order. So that gets us today to our mock draft. We're mocking a mock of the Bleacher Report. Let's get to number 4.
With the 4th pick, the Sacramento Kings select.
And this is where we need Adam Silver to come back out and announce that there's been a trade on this mock draft. This isn't ours. This is from Bleacher Report. The Kings have traded at 4 with the Atlanta Hawks on this mock draft. So the Kings would trade the number 4 pick and Harrison Barnes to Atlanta for the 16th pick, the number 44 pick.
That's it.
No, and John Collins. By the way, the Hawks in this case, and maybe the Kings via the trade, would take A.J. Griffin from Duke. So that's actually a little bit of an interesting twist.
That's a big jump for me.
So let's assume it's Griffin and Barnes to Atlanta for 16, 44, and John Collins.
Who does this mock have the Kings taking at 16?
Let me see. I'm going to have to scoot down the mock draft because that then becomes very important. I would say at this point, you're looking at... Who do they have here? Jalen Williams, a shooting guard from Santa Clara.
Well, and there's talks the Kings need to address that position, especially if they're not super excited about a Fox Mitchell backcourt to start. I think that is a super interesting trade. I'd come up with that one prior. I've also come up with a variation of that where the Kings get off of Rashawn Holmes, Holiday, and Harkless. My thinking there is that I think Atlanta wants to get off Clint Capello's money. I told you before I wouldn't do this trade. I've changed my mind. I would do this trade.
Why?
I like John Collins. I think John Collins...
You need to sell me on John Collins. I'm not there.
I'm there for 2 reasons. One, I think he wants a bigger role, which he would get in Sacramento.
Sure.
And I think he could show he can do more with a bigger role. He's perfect next to Sabonis because Sabonis wants to operate in the paint. John Collins likes to play out on the wing. So now you kind of have your stretch 4. And I think we have it. I think there's still talent there that's not tapped. He's a good rebounder, which this team really lacked last year. I think it makes the Kings bigger. I think it makes them more versatile on offense. John Collins, to me, is a better player than Harrison Barnes. And if you're swapping the 4 and you're still getting the 16th pick, I trust Monty McNair to get a solid player at 16.
I don't know. I'm just not there on John Collins. I don't hate it. The more and more, like last week, I thought I should have been completely on vacation, but I was thinking a lot about the Kings in this situation. The one thing I thought about, Jay, is based on what Monty has said in the past, and I don't know that we have that I can find the clip of this somewhere, but I believe Monty is going into this draft not thinking trade at all at 4.
Really? I think the exact opposite.
I think he believes this is one of the few times, and he's right if this is his true belief, that you can control what you try to sign a free agent, you try to acquire a trade, but this is where you can get a player under your control for at least 4 years and potentially 8 to 10 and get a generational player in the draft. Now, they may not get him at 4,
right,
but he hasn't picked that high. He's picking this high with a break in the lottery. I feel like they're swinging away and they're going for someone big time at 4.
I put it this way. I agree with you here. If they're staying at 4, it'll be best player available. I don't think Monty's going to make a grab for fit in hopes that it helps get them into the playoffs. I think he will. And if that's the case, I think Jaden Ivey would be the pick at 4 if he's in.
Yeah, when some people were saying no, Jaden Ivey because they're back. No, not at all.
We've already, again, go off of precedent.
Yeah.
2 years in a row, he's drafted someone in the backcourt, not giving a damn.
I used to do this example years ago. I'll still use it. Like the Lakers had Kobe Bryant, and then they could draft Dwayne Wade. You do it. You figure it out.
Period.
Like, why do you want Kobe and Dwayne Wade? Because we have the 2 best guards in the league at the time at 2 guard. That's a problem. Yeah, for everyone else.
Yeah, and if the fit doesn't work, you can make a trade, as we saw at the deadline this year with Monty. So
yeah, I think they're going to swing away. We'll see. We'll keep mocking the mock drafts. That one was unique though, with a trade wrinkle to it. All right, the NBA Finals are finally here. Well, we got to wait a few more days, but we got the matchup. We'll get into the first look of the Warriors and Celtics when we come back.
Sports 1140 KHTK.
Sort of a weird face, kind of unattractive.
Yeah! It's the Carmichael Dave Show.
Come on. Let's wake up.
With Jason Ross.
He is wise.
The only local sports talk show that helps you get through your morning commute. The Carmichael Dave Show with Jason Ross on Sports 1140 KHTK.
Jason Ross, Jay Mars here on this Tuesday morning, May 31st. Carmichael Dave back with us tomorrow. Again, our draft coverage brought to you by Power Business Technology. Check them out online at powerbusinesscopiers.com. We have to wait for Thursday for basketball.
Jeez.
Hopefully it's the best basketball. We were talking earlier, Jay. The playoffs have just, they didn't give us enough. I mean, I love the playoffs. It should be our best basketball. Way too many blowouts. In odd times. We talked about that Game 7 in Phoenix. Just did not add up. Did not make any sense where Dallas blew them out. Warriors, made pretty quick and easy work of the Mavs in the conference finals. There are moments there for individuals. And then we had a 7-game series with Miami and Boston, but I don't think, if I told you beforehand and you didn't watch a game of it and you said, wow, 7-game series that came down where the home team had a chance for a 3 to win it late or to go ahead. It sounds like a great series.
Yeah.
That's the highlights. If inside of it and you watched it, yeah.
It was a stinker.
The
series was a stinker. It's okay to say.
Not a lot of greatness in there. But here we go. I think we've got a good matchup. Styles make fights, right? You got the Warriors, Celtics. I think they're very similar. They both turn the ball over a lot.
A lot.
They both like to share the ball and move the ball. I think the Warriors are better in that department. Warriors probably have a few more options in scoring. I would say the Celtics have the better defense. Warriors will switch defenses up. I think the biggest advantage going in is not even home court. I would just say the Warriors have been there. I think that's the stage. They've been on it. The stage will not be too big for the Warriors. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, and while the Celtics haven't exactly been, and when I say the Celtics, I mean this iteration of the Celtics. Mm-hmm. Obviously, they've been to the NBA Finals quite a bit of times. But that core of Brown and Tatum does have a lot of playoff and big game experience, especially given their age.
Yep.
I think, was this their third conference finals they had appeared in together?
Yeah, they finally broke through.
Yeah, and Marcus Smart, you wrap him in there as well, and then you combine some veteran guys like Al Horford that have been doing this for a long time. I don't think that's as big as an advantage for the Warriors as it might seem to be on paper. Mm-hmm. Put it that way. So I think the Celtics will show up. I don't think the stage is going to scare the Celtics.
I don't think so either. I don't think so either. And then is tapping into that experience for the Warriors. A lot of times, and I think I'm guilty of this, I'll lean to something I've seen before. I've seen Steve Kerr coach a champion. I've seen Steph Curry and Draymond and Iguodala and Clay, they hoist the trophy. So I can see that happening again with a parade. They've done it. They've lost too, but I can see that as a very probable outcome here.
Well, and you look at the two losses that they had. Number one, that was to a phenomenal Cleveland team, and you were minus Draymond Green for one game. And that mattered. That turned the tide of the series. And then the other one they lost to Toronto, you had Klay Thompson and Kevin Durant.
They would not have lost. No. I do not believe.
I don't think, they beat Toronto if those guys are healthy. Yeah. So you have a healthy Warriors team that, might even get Gary Payton 2 back at some point in the series. And that, when we talk about kind of swinging the pendulum, so to speak, defensively, the Warriors could really use him.
Yeah.
But you're also going against the Celtics team that is relatively healthy. I know Marcus Smart and Robert Williams, who are a big part of what they do on the defensive end, have been questionable, but they have played. And when they've played, they have looked and have been productive. And I think having that gap, of a few days will help those guys get some recovery time. It's nice that we're going into the series with both teams being relatively healthy, and I think this is going to be a 7-game series.
Yeah, I think what's great as far as the path to get there, if you look at the Warriors, you go through what is laid out in front of you. I think they got the right matchup with Denver and took care of them. I mean, they didn't let Jokic dominate the series by any means. Memphis, meanwhile, had to really battle with Minnesota, so by the time the Warriors got to him, I think even though the Warriors started in Memphis with home court, the Warriors got him at the right time, and then Ja got hurt. And, it still proved to be difficult for the Warriors, but they got through that series. And then I do think it was a huge break that they got Dallas and not Phoenix.
Yeah, no, Phoenix deciding to lay that egg in that series. And correct me if I'm wrong, they were up 2-0 in that series against Dallas.
2-0, and yeah. And
similar to what happened against Milwaukee last year. But, yeah, and then they go out there and they have this arguably one of the worst Game 7s, probably the worst Game 7 a number 1 seed's ever had.
Oh, for sure. At their home place, yeah.
And Dallas got one game, and that was, to me, Dallas or the Warriors taking their foot off the pedal.
It was 3-0.
Yeah, so
like,
it was 3-0.
Like, let's win at home. I mean, they didn't.
They were so loose after that loss. You could tell they weren't tripping.
Right.
And you knew they were going to win Game 5.
Right.
They were obviously like, well, anything can happen. Sure, but that doesn't mean it's likely to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, they've kind of, I don't like to use the word cruise because I wouldn't say they've cruised to the NBA Finals, but when you look at it compared to the Celtics, it's definitely the road less traveled.
Yeah, and I think they've had breaks, but whatever. It doesn't mean.
Every team that wins gets breaks, Jason.
Yeah, it's not a gift. And then I look at, you could say Boston, look at their path. Man, they had to go through Brooklyn. I said at the time, I thought Brooklyn was so dysfunctional, and it showed in that series. Now, every game was competitive. I mean, KD and Kyrie weren't going to let it be easy. It was a 4-game sweep that was difficult for Boston, but they got through that. Milwaukee, we had said it when it happened. They could have played 21 games, and I think it would have been 10-10 going into game 21. Boston won the last one. I mean, so.
And again, you talk about catching breaks. Chris Middleton's hurting that series.
True. And then you get Miami, who had some injuries in the series. Now, Boston had to win some road games, and they won 3, including Game 7. So I feel like Boston's just been through a gauntlet, though. Like, they've been through a lot. That's why I think these couple days of rest, even with travel out here, they need just to get their minds right going into a series.
But also going back to what I was saying, that's why I don't think that, hey, the Warriors have been here and won it before. Yeah, it matters, absolutely. I just don't think it matters as much because this Boston core is battle-tested. Just because they haven't been to the NBA Finals yet. Again, I think it's 3 conference finals between Smart, Brown, and Tatum as that trio. And then you talk about, sweeping that Nets team, and especially with that way they won that Game 1, that was a big deal.
Yeah.
Knocking off the defending champions, again, I know Middleton's hurt. That's a big deal. Going in and beating the number 1 seed, again, dealing with injuries, but the number 1 seed, the best team in your conference, you won 3 road games. That's a big deal.
Yeah.
It's not like these guys are going to show up and the lights and the moment's going to get to them. This is a really good Celtics team. They've got good veterans. They've got a good mix of young guys. I'm actually, when I look at the potential matches of what could have been in the NBA Finals, this to me is probably my favorite.
Yeah, I like this a lot. I just like the style of the two teams, the way they play, the way they get after it, the way we're seeing Boston's stars develop. We already knew Tatum and Brown were good, but they're really turning into next level guys.
And you got to love at the end of that Game 7 when they're telling each other, I think Jaylen Brown said it to Tatum, like, they said we couldn't play together.
Right.
Like, these guys have a chip on their shoulder.
Oh, for sure. And they're utilizing it beautifully. And the other thing I just think about Game 1 a lot. A lot of times this, go on into a pivotal Game 5, or if the series is 2-2. The one thing I would say, Jay, that the Warriors have been exceptional at in this run of 6 titles or 6 times to the finals in 8 years is establishing the lead in a series, winning Game 1. And it may just be, it's a throwaway game. Well, Boston can't throw away any games. Mm-mm. And if there is an advantage of being in the stage and the Warriors just kind of get through Game 1 no matter what, it's like now you're already chasing the series. And Boston's done that with Milwaukee. They did that with Miami. It's just
But those teams aren't this Warriors team.
It's not a healthy practice to keep going. Now, if Boston loses because the Warriors just outplayed them in Game 1, okay. You just don't want to give any games away. You got to make them earn it. And I just like Marcus Smart versus Steph Curry's going to be fun to watch. I mean, I just think there's some really good, how do the Warriors defend Tatum? The 3-point shooting will be very prominent in this series, but both teams can do it. I like that. Horford's finally in a finals. There's just a lot of cool storylines in this.
Yeah, and it's really going to come down to, again, I think the stars are going to perform on each team, whether that's Brown, Smart, and Tatum on the Boston side, Curry, Draymond, and Thompson on the other side. It's going to come down to, and it always does when you get to this level, when you have stars playing, what are the role players going to do? Who's going to be the breakout role player for one of these teams? And that, we've seen it. The Celtics have had a couple different guys. I mean, I consider Marcus Smart a role player, and I don't mean that in the way people take it in, meaning his role is to be the best defender in the NBA. But that's his role. Like anything he gives you on offense is really a bonus.
Yeah.
But I view Draymond Green in the same.
I love that each team has a guy like that, though.
It's just they're role players, but they're like some of the greatest role players of all time. They're all-star level role players.
Yeah.
And so those guys are going to do their thing, but we've seen with the Celtics, whether it's Robert Williams stepping up at different times. Derek White has been so good for them, especially with Marcus Smart being kind of hampered. That was such a great under-the-radar trade the Celtics made at the deadline.
Yeah.
He's stepped up at big times. Al Horford, like you said, stepped up at big times. Grant Williams has stepped up at big times for them. Go to the Warriors. Jordan Poole stepped up. Yeah. Andrew Wiggins has been fantastic for them.
That's probably been one of my biggest surprises is really how well he's jumped into this, and whether it was defending Luka to, like, it always seems like there's a big moment in every game where he gets an offensive rebound dunk, and you're like, man, Wiggins he's so athletic in just some of the plays he's made.
He's another example of a guy that all the potential in the world got into an environment and bought into his role on a team and is now thriving.
Just means that either Bjelica or Stauskas is getting a ring.
Nick rocks.
The ex-Kings.
We're all hoping for Bjelica, right?
Either.
I'd rather Bjelica get a ring than Stauskas.
Of the two, yeah.
Yes.
I guess so. And it's not even anti-Boston. Like, it's just...
No, it's anti-Stauskas.
Yeah, that's it. That's exactly what it is. All right, well, the Warriors and Celtics came from some pretty incredible paths, if you think about it. Specifically this season, there was a stretch where Boston really, really struggled through almost halfway through, and the Warriors had that rough patch. But here they are in the finals. Is there any kind of parallel that we can put the Kings to these two teams where they've been the last couple of years? We'll try to do that next.
Sports 1140.
KHTK.
Only place to get live and local sports talk in the morning.
The Carmichael Dave Show with Jason Ross.
On the king of Sacramento sports talk. Sports 1140 KHTK.
Well, the NBA Finals get started on Thursday. There's some news around the league. Looks like the Sixers have said that Joel Embiid underwent surgery yesterday. Remember, he had that sprained thumb. Also had another injury to his index finger. It looks like none of that will impact his return to the team when they are ready to go in fall. So no worries there, but everybody waits as long as they possibly can before they do surgery, and it looks like that surgery was needed. So speedy recovery coming up for Joel Embiid. But I'm thinking, Jay, about these Warriors and the Celtics. If we think about last year where Boston, they were just a 500 team.
Yeah, 36-36.
Yeah, made the playoffs, but a 500 team. This year, there was talk in December and early January that, one, Ime Udoka was in over his head. Two, they got to do it. They finally got to break up Brown and Tatum. Who's the one to go? And I'm sure there was talk show fodder and like, no, it's got to be Tatum. You get more for him. No way. Keep Tatum. It's Brown. He can't do this, so on and so forth. And they elected to stay with it.
Mm-hmm.
And added a subtle move of Derek White. And they got Tice back, right? Was that in the offseason?
Yeah, that was on. Yes, that was offseason.
Yeah. So, in bringing Horford back, I mean, just little things that they did that which
was not laughed at, but people are just like, all right, when that trade went down, the Kemba Walker move to OKC. Yeah. Like, nobody, that was not under the radar, but it didn't seem like anyone really thought that was going to have an impact.
Yeah, it's like good for Al. Like, I don't know where he's been, what he's going to do. He was best in Boston, but I don't know what he's got left. He's been great. The move, even the offseason, the Udoka with Stevens going up into the front office, just no one saw that one coming.
Nope.
And they really just stuck with the season, and I don't know that we'll ever see something like this again because not only did we've seen turnarounds or a second half improvement, but they were the best team in basketball for the back half of the season, and it was like 40 games. So it wasn't like for the last 10 they were good. Right. And here they are in the finals. It's really amazing the turnaround by Boston.
Yeah, and so let's kind of examine those moves on the in the big picture.
Yeah.
Brad Stevens was considered one of the best head coaches in basketball for a long time. Danny Ainge considered one of the best front office executives in basketball for the longest time. He's up and out. You move Stevens in, completely unproven as a basketball executive. So we don't know, right? And I think the thought process was like, we'll see. But I don't think anyone was expecting much out of him in year one. Makes the move for Al Horford, kind of flies under the radar. Grabs Daniel Tice. It makes the move at the deadline for Derek White. Again, the core wasn't really touched in Boston. Marcus Smart still there. Brown, Tatum. Same core as last year. Is Ime Udoka that good of a coach? Or did Boston need a different voice, but also needed, again, we go back to it, just better role players? How critical is, and we talked about this when Al Horford was a free agent, and I know both you and me were big proponents of Al Horford coming to Sacramento at the time because of what he means as a locker room leader. And he's almost like, we always talk about the point guard being another coach. To me, especially on the defensive end, the way he communicates on defense, he's like having a defensive coordinator that can play defense.
Correct.
He truly is special in that way. So you had these guys, you had the right ingredients of role players around them, and look how much better they are.
Yeah, and I think the other similarity between the two organizations is how much this was done through the draft.
Yes.
I mean, there's filler pieces here, which you have to do.
Sure.
But, I mean, Tatum and Brown and Smart, even just go down the line of those other pieces, those role guys, and Grant Williams, Robert Williams. That's a lot of Peyton Pritchard that you've put in through your draft that play meaningful minutes for your team.
Yeah, and then you look at the Warriors. Same idea.
Steph,
your big
Clay,
three.
Draymond.
All guys they've drafted.
Poole,
guy they developed. Juan Toscano, guy they had developed. Gary Payton, a guy they developed. Looney, all these guys spending time in the G League, the Santa Cruz Warriors, developing guys that you picked up. It's a great story from both sides.
Yeah.
You know, and so you were trying to parallel it to the Kings.
Well, because the way I looked at it is like, okay, Boston made the playoffs. They've been a playoff team, but they were 36-36. The Warriors did not. They were the last year. Remember, they got eliminated in the playing game. They were likely a playoff team, but they were a team that technically didn't make the playoffs in the year before. All the injuries, and they were just awful. But it's been 2 years since they've been in, and now they're right back to the finals. So those are pretty drastic turnarounds. I'm not expecting all the way to the finals turnaround, but teams have turned things around.
Yeah, and they have. I don't think you can really parallel the Kings and the Warriors simply because I just think it was injuries that took the Warriors out. I think Klay Thompson missing 2 years is the biggest reason.
And KD gone.
KD leaves, and you got unproven talent and then other young talent that you're trying to develop that you've drafted in Wiseman, who's been hurt. And then this year, obviously, Moody and Kuminga, and they've both shown signs, Kuminga more than Moody, I think, this year, of being really good pieces. But it really came down to that big three either being hurt or not seeing the floor at the same time, one of them being healthy. And so I can't really draw a parallel there. But, and again, and it's not an apples-to-apples comparison. With the Kings and Celtics, something very similar here. Whereas I think if the Kings they're going to have the new head coach coming in. And I think Mike Brown will do a good job of establishing culture. That is one thing we keep hearing about him is like, that's something he can do really well. I also trust this front office. I really do. And if they can do something similar where the way Jason Tatum took a huge leap this year, especially on the defensive side, if Fox and Sabonis can each take a leap, and then you combine that with putting the right players around them, are the Kings going to be in the NBA Finals next year? Absolutely not. Is there a scenario where they can make the right offseason moves and this team can be contending for a playoff spot? Yeah. I think so. Is it super likely? I don't think so. But that doesn't mean it can't happen. We've seen these things turn around quick, fast, in a hurry, similar to what happened with Boston this year.
Yeah, I've heard people do this, and I understand why. It's like, okay, I'm worried less about a team falling out or who would the Kings have to replace. I don't look at it that way. The Kings just need to take care of their business.
Exactly.
At some point, I would have looked at Minnesota like, oh, they're not going to get in the top 8 because who are they going to knock out? They just played their season. And over time, you're like, Minnesota's actually pretty good.
Right.
So it didn't matter like which team, the Clippers were injured. Sure, that may have helped, but at the end, I would have gone, Minnesota probably would have pushed for a spot anyway.
Of course.
And the Lakers struggled. Sure, Minnesota could have still pushed for a spot anyway. And I think that's what you need to be in a situation where it's, well, you get in because 4 teams had, catastrophic injuries. You
Exactly.
don't want that. You need to do it your own authentic way and build from within.
Well, and that's just it. You have to build, and then to your point, and I think it's such a valid point, is you got to see how the regular season plays out, because it always plays out differently than what the quote-unquote predictions are in the offseason. Nobody saw the Lakers collapse coming.
Right.
Nobody saw Portland just getting completely hurt and
Right.
blowing it up to a degree
Right.
coming. And then on the other side of that, nobody saw Minnesota playing as well as they did.
Yeah.
I don't think
Memphis being a 2
Memphis
seed.
being a 2 seed, unpredictable.
Right.
You just got to develop and put together the best team that you can with the resources that you have and let it play out.
Yeah. I think the best path for the Kings, you hit on it, Jay, is I don't know what number of games, but let's say 70 or more of Fox and Sabonis together. I like the sound of that. Just that in and of its own. I can't imagine them both having off years.
No.
So they'll both be productive in whatever version of that for them. We didn't see enough games of them together. And then,
What did we get of them? 10? 8?
like completely together?
Yeah.
I forget we'll have to look at the number again because it wasn't as many as
It was less than 12.
Yeah. And again, it wasn't blowing away win-loss, but okay, can we see 40, 50,
Right.
60, 70? It's going to be a difference.
With a training camp
Right.
and not having an offense completely change in the middle of the season because of a trade.
Yeah. And then certainly the development of the guys that will be back, this 4th pick, off-season moves. You can
We need Davion to take a leap, obviously.
Yeah.
Everyone's hoping for that.
you can see a path, but again, we've probably said that 10 of the last 60, I can see where it could go well. I think there's more authentic foundation pieces right now going in, but that means
Completely
absolutely
agree.
nothing if 1, they're not healthy, and 2, all the other parts don't come together.
Yeah, and I really, again, I'm going to harp on the other parts coming together.
Mhm.
And I think that's been one thing missing from the Kings of these last 16 years is, again, you see they get themselves good players. It's just they fail to. I mean, DeMarcus is the classic example of this. And this is not a full-blown defense of DeMarcus Cousins. Did he have his issues? Absolutely. But you draft him, he's an all-league center. You had a star.
Right.
That's undeniable. What did you put around him?
Yeah.
Rudy Gay and Isaiah Thomas, even that team would have topped out like as an 8 seed probably.
Yeah.
But you just miss in the draft, you miss in free agency, you miss on trades. You have to put good pieces around your stars or it's not going to work.
Yeah. And I still don't know. I haven't had a real good read on how active they'll be in free agency. They have some money, but not a ton.
I wouldn't expect anything that's going to make a significant impact, put it that way.
Yeah,
Unless
this
you
one
find
has-
someone on the cheap that you've just developed and have one of
Yeah.
those Tyler Hero, a Duncan Robinson type guy, or you draft them late in the second round.
Yeah, I think their movement of changing the team, 1 was coach.
Yeah.
2 is this 4th pick, whether they keep it or move it. And then, the potential to change it around is what Holmes, Barnes, like some of the guys that are currently here, that if you opt to move, I think that's how you can change the team some.
And I think when you look at guys, and let's look at guys who've been starters, and I think that is just Rashawn and Harrison probably at this point. One of those 2 guys I think moves in the offseason because you're going to need to make some big changes, and those outside of Fox, Sabonis, and maybe Mitchell, those are your biggest pieces, right? As far as players that are on the roster now, not
Yeah.
counting draft picks.
Right, that would be coveted by someone else.
Yeah, those are probably your guys that will attract the most suitors, and you'll probably have to attract picks to them to make a significant trade.
Right.
But I would imagine at least one of those guys is not a Sacramento King next year.
Yeah. Well, again, the Warriors found a way to do it. The Celtics found a way to do it. Yeah, we'd all love it to be that extreme. Just let's get this team more competitive. That's what needs to happen. All right, still more to get to. We still have the news, what's hot, what's not. When we come back, some NFL sound that we want to get you to, what the Niners are saying about Trey Lance. Could Aaron Donald actually retire? We got that and more next.
Sports 1140 KHTK. Carmichael Dave Show with Jason Ross.
You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to text them right now.
916-339-1140.
Sports 1140.
KHTK.
All right, continuing here on Sports 1140 KHTK. Jason Ross, Jay Mars, Carmichael Dave back with us tomorrow. We were talking about still 2 more days till the NBA Finals. It's 100 days till the NFL starts.
Just 100?
Just 100.
So
it'll go by quickly.
What you're telling me is I have 100 more days to find out if Trey Lance is good or not.
You do.
To hear from people whether or not he's going to be the starting quarterback. I have 100 more days of that.
Well, you got his teammates talking about him.
Again, everybody's talking about him.
I don't think you have to worry about if he's the starting quarterback. I think he's going to be the starting quarterback.
You don't think it'll be Jimmy G?
What is happening?
Are you not a Jimmy G truther in that sense?
I don't know
he's still a 49er, I can tell you that much.
And that surprised me that it's lasted this long, to be honest.
Will Jimmy G be the most expensive backup in NFL history come week 1?
Well, you know what? I shouldn't say there's no doubt that Trey Lance will be the starter, because if Jimmy G is still on the team,
it makes things interesting, right?
I personally would start Jimmy G.
I just, at this point...
if he's on the team. I
hear you.
would move him.
And I think it's a completely reasonable thing to say.
Just of the known quantity week 1, at some point you got to go to Trey Lance, but maybe it's now.
I would hope, especially with the offseason program and the OTAs, and he's been taking reps as the number 1 guy since the season ended. He better be ready, or oh boy, is that going to be a PR nightmare for the 49ers.
You make all those moves to wait him 2 to 3 years. Man. Well, let's hear what George Kittle had to say, because we like when George Kittle talks. Here he is talking about Trey getting better.
Even if it's just from like his routine every single day to how he holds himself, his confidence, I feel like is a lot higher too. I think as a NFL player, you have to have confidence to be able to do anything. Like if you lack confidence, then that's when you drop a football. That's when everything snowballs and you throw one interception, then the next thing you know, it's an incomplete pass. You mess up a play call. And Trey's done a good job of like, hey, if he doesn't like a pass, the next one's still going to come out firing. And so you got to appreciate that. But I think he's gotten better from where he was at the end of last year.
You know, it's interesting that he says that with the first preseason game. You can't take all into a preseason game, but I remember watching him just the look. I go, man, he looks the part. Obviously, got a big arm. You could see his ability to get out of the pocket. And it looked like he had the right mix of respect to Jimmy G, respect to being new, but also a little bit of swag to him. So it's funny that Kittle's like, no, he's just way more confident now. I didn't look at a guy, to me, that didn't have the confidence, but he would know more so by being around him every day.
Yeah, but you heard that was kind of a big thing when it came down to in training camp last year, was the idea that he didn't look super confident, and that kind of led to why they were like, no, Jimmy's the starter. When we had all kind of theorized, there might be a QB competition here. I like what George Kittle has said. I thought last year, in the few times we did see him, the thing I liked about Trey Lance was super comfortable running the ball when the pocket collapsed, and was just so much better at it than Jimmy Garoppolo. The thing that I think everyone would get afraid of is when he threw that football, it was like 100-mile-an-hour knuckleball.
Yeah.
But there's also been rumors, though, that a big part of that was because of the broken finger last season really affected the way he threw the ball. And again, what we hear out of OTAs and stuff is that it's a lot more of a spiral this year, which is good. That's the thing I'm really looking to see, is if he's throwing the ball and it looks like an NFL quarterback's throwing the ball, then I'm going to start buying some of this more comfortable stuff we're hearing from like George Kittle.
Yeah, because I think
right now I feel like it's just a veteran talking good about his young QB.
Yeah, I think and if we're doing what would be a knock on Jimmy G, would be there would be a couple of throws a game that Jimmy G just couldn't or didn't make. I wouldn't say couldn't make, didn't. That were, I would say, highly effective, should be high completion rate passes that he would just miss. I think one of the most famous ones was the Super Bowl deep throw to Emmanuel Sanders, that if it's connected, it's going to go down as one of the great throws and great connect. Oh, he just missed. He did. But he's got to make the throw. Like, there's no other, like, oh, he just missed a free throw. Yeah, but you got to make it. Or he missed the putt. You got to make it. And he had to make that throw.
And this is why I'm not convinced that if Jimmy's on the roster, he's the week 1 starter. Mm-hmm. Because Jimmy has a history, and he's never gotten better at these two things. Like you said, you get 2 or 3 throws from him a game that are just bunnies that, your average NFL quarterback makes.
Yeah.
That he just overshoots guys or he'll underthrow. you're good for 2 or 3 of them, and usually one of them ends up being an interception.
Mm-hmm.
The other side of it, that if that pocket collapses, Jimmy's screwed. He's either going to get sacked, or he's going to throw an interception. He can't throw under pressure.
Like a panic throw.
He can't throw under pressure, and you need a quarterback. We've seen it in this league. The elite quarterbacks throw under pressure.
Yeah.
And it's not always guys that have these super legs like Lamar Jackson and Patrick Mahomes. Aaron Rodgers is one of the best quarterbacks of all time throwing under pressure. Jimmy can't do that, and he's not going to do that.
Yeah.
Trey Lance, I at least know he can move his legs under pressure, and he was really good at avoiding getting sacked when pressure would come, and he would usually net positive yards for you. I worry again about Trey Lance. Just does he have the ability to consistently make the throws? That's obviously going to be the biggest thing moving forward with him. And Jason, we're not going to know until the season starts.
Absolutely.
We can listen to George Kittle all we want, talk about he's getting better, he's looking more comfortable. It's one thing to look comfortable in OTAs and in the offseason. It's another thing week 3 when you have 300-pound men coming for your neck.
Well, and the other thing, too, I think the bonus of if the Niners really, and maybe they've done this already, but shift all their focus to Trey Lance, what I do like is I'm a big fan of Kyle Shanahan. I think, and I know that I can already hear the people like, oh, he's blown this game, done that. Okay, forget all of that. I think when he's given a game plan, like the Niners – I think run good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And if he has a camp, an offseason, like last year, it felt like it was kind of Jimmy G's job, but with a hint at Lance. And even in the beginning, remember the first touchdown of the year was thrown by Trey Lance on a gimmick play near the goal line. And I think they were both being used a little bit. Then as the season went on, it was like, okay, it's just Jimmy.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if the just Jimmy is now just Trey Lance, and Kyle Shanahan can really map out, okay, this is what's going to fit him best. This is the offense I'm going to run. These are the plays that will work on 3rd and 3. These are the plays that will work for 2-point conversions. These are the play that when we're down 6 against Arizona, we need to win on the road. Like, I think that's the craftsmanship that he thinks of that I think will be good for Trey Lance.
And I think the Kyle Shanahan blows the big game thing is really blown out of proportion. I think a lot of people take that out of context, simply because of really what happened in that Super Bowl with the Falcons and the Patriots. And I want to point out, Kyle Shanahan was not the head coach of that Falcons team, but everyone seems to forget that Dan Quinn was the head coach of that
He was the offensive coordinator. He called the plays.
Sure.
Okay.
Sure, but again, Quinn can override at any point, and Kyle's also not out on the field, but I don't want to go down that road. I'm with you. I think Kyle Shanahan will perfect an offense around Trey Lance and his skill set. I 100% believe that, which is also why I believe that you have to go with Trey Lance from week 1, because you can't go in to the regular season after spending your offseason with him being your number 1 guy and developing an offense around him and then switching to Jimmy on the fly, because you run 2 completely different offenses depending on which one of those guys is your quarterback.
Yeah.
And I think that's the big reason why, more than anything, Trey Lance probably was not ready to be a full-time starter last year, but also, and fans forget this, Trey Lance ran a different offense. Like, you weren't going to go in. Trey Lance, the offense you're running for Jimmy Garoppolo, is not what you're going to run for Trey Lance. And so trying to flip that in the middle of a season when you have limited practice time is extremely difficult.
Yeah.
So you kind of have to be married to one of them. It can't really be a competition.
Yeah, for the best success for the team, certainly for Shanahan, certainly for Trey Lance as well. Now, what could help is if he's not being run down by Aaron Donald.
Right.
Aaron Donald had, even before the Super Bowl, when they won the Super Bowl, there was talk about him maybe being done. Let's get a couple of clips from Aaron Donald first, talking about this decision right now and not being about the money.
It ain't about the money. It's a business at the end of the day. That's what you got to see. So it's about for me. It's about winning. I don't want to play football if I can't win anyway. So I feel like if it relying and I got a real opportunity to win another Super Bowl, then it makes sense to play. But again, it's still a business. We got to handle the business side of things. And if that wasn't to get handled, then it is what it is type situation. I'll be fine regardless.
Yeah, I mean, I think they've got every chance to repeat. I don't know that they will, but they're one of the contenders, right?
I mean, you lose OBJ.
Right.
You lose Robert Woods, which was a big part of that offense, but you also add Allen Robinson.
Mm-hmm.
still have Matt Stafford. You still have all the stars are still there.
Yeah, everything you've added in the past.
There's no reason to think that. I don't think they'll repeat just because repeating in the NFL is so damn hard.
But not because of the roster construction.
Correct. Yeah, this team will be competing for a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Put it that way. We should have them up there as a top 5 competing team for a Super Bowl this year.
And football is just so much different than any other sport. Like Donald, I'm assuming, he's so physically chiseled, I'm assuming like his everyday life is okay. But like every year you put in, every more games you put in, it's like, man, that guy can't even walk anymore.
Yeah, but that wasn't Aaron Donald last year.
No,
he did
it wasn't.
not look like he slowed down at all. So I agree with him. He's done everything.
Yeah.
And at this point, he's like, I've made my money. I want to be on a contender. The Rams are a contender.
Yeah.
I say all that to say I don't think there's a chance in hell Aaron Donald doesn't play next season.
Yeah, and it's also not like, hey, I'm going to a contender. Like, he's not leaving the Rams.
No.
So he's either playing for the Rams or he's retiring, but I think he's playing for the Rams.
And I think we're at a point now where when the Rams kind of fade and they're not a contender, he'll probably retire then.
Yeah.
I don't see him pulling a Tom Brady and going to a Tampa situation for a couple seasons.
Yeah, I can't see that either. All right, we got one final segment ahead. Still what's hot, what's not, and the news to wrap things up.
Nope. What's hot?
Yeah, hot. Real hot.
And what's not?
It's not good.
Brought to you by American Energy Air and Solar, Sacramento's complete heating and cooling company, and second opinion partner.
Well, what was hot was Mookie Betts in the month of May.
Mookie!
Listen to this. Mookie Betts ties 1953 Roy Campanella, not 1952. For the most home runs, 12, by a Dodgers player in the month of May. So this hadn't happened in almost 70 years. Betts is the first player with 12 home runs and 30 runs scored in a month since...
Team? Can you give me a team?
Mateen Cleaves?
No.
Oh, team. The Rockies.
Todd Helton.
Name starts with a T. Not Todd Helton.
Tante Bichette.
Tante Bichette. You got it. Was Tinny Castilla.
Oh, there it is. Who was it?
No, it was Troy Tulowitzki in September of 2010. Tulo was good for a while, man.
He was really good.
Who's not? Dodgers legend Corey Knebel. He is the first pitcher to allow a game-tying or go-ahead home run in the 9th inning of consecutive games this season. Never has been quite the same since he was with the Brewers.
He's on my fantasy baseball league with Tommy Pham.
Did you start him?
No.
Wait, do you really have Tommy Pham too?
No,
I was going to say that's impressive.
I'm in the same league as Tommy Pham.
Okay.
He's in my league. No.
I was wondering why you were kind of marked up on the face.
He didn't
what did
enjoy
you
my
do?
GIF. Yeah, he did not enjoy it.
Have you been hoarding guys on the IR?
Yes, improperly using the way this works. Wow, Mookie, is he your favorite Dodger?
No.
Right now? Oh, it's Turner, huh?
Right now, I mean, of this team long term, it's Clayton. I mean, that's kind of the obvious answer.
I thought it'd be Justin Turner.
I love Justin Turner. Justin Turner's
seems to get all the biggest hits in the postseason.
He's one of my favorite all-time Dodgers. I'll put it that way. That's probably Justin Turner right now, although I've really very quickly come around to both Mookie and Freddie Freeman's awesome. I like Freddie a lot.
You know what's funny is this run. I mean, the
Chris
Dodgers
Taylor.
have the World Series, but they've been so good for so long here. And Turner's been there that entire time. Like, I feel like there'll be other like Scherzer's time there, Mookie,
Manny Machado.
But like Turner's.
You Darvish.
Oh man, you Darvish.
No, they've had their share of rentals.
For it. Yeah. They've gone for it. I really thought they were going to keep Machado.
I didn't. I thought he was going to cost too much money. Well, you have to remember, at the time, Machado came over because Seager was hurt, and they wanted to make a run for the title. So they knew they still had Seager on small money. Plus, you had Gavin Lux, who could. You don't want him to play shortstop, but he can play there in a pinch. But interestingly enough, I thought Seager was going to be the guy that was going to be that long-term Dodger, but, I think they felt comfortable with Trey Turner there this season. And then the money Seager got in Texas was just, I thought it was ridiculous.
Yeah.
And I love Corey Seager, especially in the postseason. I mean, he, to me, was the best player on that 2020 team in the postseason. But God darn, that team. Boy, has that not worked out for the Rangers, hasn't it?
They need to get pitching, but if they can keep those guys, Simeon and Seager, for years, that'll help. But
batting. I mean, Seager's been better, but Simeon this year. Oof.
Yeah, rough year.
No kidding.
Rough year.
All right. Had a big grand slam against the A's, though, a few nights. Was that against the A's?
Too soon. Everything's against the A's.
Yeah, that's true.
All right. It's time for the news.
Stand by on this frequency.
It's time for the news of the day.
Thank you for ruining the show and dropping a steamer on my journalistic integrity.
Today's important headlines, intelligent analysis, hard-hitting interviews.
Yeah, this is none of those things.
Here's Carmichael Dave and Jason Ross.
Oh my God, I love those guys.
And again, Carmichael Dave will be back with us tomorrow. Speaking of the A's, this was a note that was passed to me by our friend Pat from down the hall. Pat
and it's in our funny news segment. This should be great.
Yes. A photo went viral this past week of a concession stand item that was at sale at the Ring Central Coliseum.
Oh?
The home of the Oakland A's. An Oakland A's fan said that the stadium was selling a packet of hot cocoa mix and a cup of hot water for $4. And you still have to mix it yourself. So
Are
just
you
like
serious?
There's the pictures, just the little.
I believe it.
Nestle packet.
Cheap bastard.
I mean, honestly,
I shouldn't have.
A box of this. I don't know if we played like Price is Right, like someone out there, $2.99.
That's what I would have guessed.
And I don't know what comes 8, 10 of those in a box.
They
maybe?
sold a packet
Aren't
and
they
some
like
water,
perforated and whatever. There's probably 2, and I'm guessing
Jason,
8 to 10.
The water's more expensive than the cocoa packet.
Should be, and at least they warm it for you. I hope they do. Give you your little.
It is. We are talking about the Oakland Coliseum. There are no warmers there.
But they bought it.
Yeah. Why would you? And
$4.
also, I'm sorry, who buys hot cocoa at a baseball game?
I mean, it must have been cool, but like I would have to know that it's hot and in a cup, ready to go.
Dude, it better be 30 degrees in Philly.
Are they selling top ramen like in a?
Might as well.
Or what's the other, cup of noodles?
$14. The top ramen's more expensive than a beer.
Man,
that's terrible.
They actually have pretty good seats.
Why is a packet of hot cocoa more than the A's payroll? 339-1140.
Cocoa Crisp. That's what it should be called. Hot Cocoa Crisp.
You know what? Why don't they bring back Cocoa Crisp for a night, and instead of bobbleheads, we can do packets of hot cocoa with his picture on it.
We're going 2 Coco stories in a row.
Oh, boy.
Coco Gauff, tennis.
Good
American.
tennis player.
Yes, advanced to her first career major semifinal today. The 18-year-old has not lost a set, has moved on to the French Open semis. Congratulations.
Congratulations, Coco.
Today, Jay, is National Smile Day. I used to take pictures as a kid, like school pictures, and my mom would always say, "Would you smile?" And I just had the
You had the smirkish frown.
Is this my smile? I probably had that from like 2nd to 4th grade. Then I would like hopefully authentically smile.
I think that's fairly natural. Like, one of the worst smilers is my son. Don't ask him to smile.
But he's at that age, right?
Yeah,
like,
his hey Isaiah smile, it's trash. It's just.
But like if he's laughing, like that's the
authentic.
authentic.
Oh, that's great. That's the authentic. But what I'm saying is when you're like Isaiah smile and he's like forced into it. Oh, it's bad.
Can't do it.
Oh.
How are the school pictures? Just rough.
I'll show you one. Actually, it's kind of hilarious.
Let's see what else we got for you today. New to Twitter, Derek Jeter. Jeets tweets.
Derek Jeter wasn't on Twitter?
No, apparently not.
Didn't know that.
Yeah, saw it today. Got a couple messages saying, "Hey, look, Derek Jeter's now tweeting."
Were you excited? Did you hit the follow?
I have not hit the follow, but I don't know if he's going to be more Magic Johnson or interesting. I don't know.
Wow. Shots at Magic Johnson.
Yes, my all-time favorite athlete. His Twitter's awful.
He said, is he going to be more Magic Johnson or interesting?
Yes.
I'm going to go Jeter will be more interesting on Twitter than Magic Johnson.
Okay, but that's the low bar.
It's not a low bar. It's the lowest of bars.
Okay, if that's 0, is he going to be 1 or is he going to be like 6 or 7? I mean, you don't have to be the most
out of
engaging
10?
Like, there's people that are on here that are really amazing at it.
Derek Jeter will be a 2.87.
Okay, that's pretty low.
So he won't be very interesting, but he'll be more interesting than Magic.
Like, what would you want Derek Jeter to tweet about? Like, I'm trying to think, like, now he's not playing. He's not even in the Marlins front office.
I want behind-the-scenes 90s Yankees stories.
Yeah.
I mean, what else?
The baseball parting gifts for his friends that would come over. Is that real?
Yes, I want to know all of that.
Which we're not going to get.
I don't want Derek Jeter to like retweet a stat and be like, "Yep, player X is really good."
Yeah.
I also don't want to see him like throwing BP to a kid. I don't care. Sorry if that makes me a bad person. It is what it is.
Do you follow a bunch of athletes?
No.
Yeah, I don't really either.
I don't really follow prominent people on socials. I'm more into like journalist. Sports journalism more
news,
so.
Like, this trade happened.
And people I know. Yeah. I use social media really more as a news feed than an actual way to interact with people, just because I don't really like people in general.
Yes. On this date, May 31st, 2018.
I know where you're going with this.
Game 1, NBA Finals, Cavs, Warriors. Cavs were heavy underdogs, but they really could have won Game 1. They were pushing him all the way to the limit. Missed free throw late. J.R. Smith gets the rebound and
runs out the clock.
Circles away.
Dude, super smart basketball.
Yeah.
Except for one problem.
They didn't have the lead.
The game was tied.
I thought we had the lead. You didn't have the lead.
And then we got the most classic LeBron James picture I think of all time.
Yeah.
Screw the video of the Heat intros, the decision. Nah, it's just the picture.
Just disgusted.
It's one of my favorite things ever.
That was Game 1. It would be Game 1 of a 4-game series.
Yeah.
And the last 4, LeBron would play in Cleveland Part 2. We'd go to the Lakers. J.R. Smith would go to golf, become an academic All-American.
And a good golfer by that.
Yes, good for him.
Also, what do you think people remember more? LeBron taking the Cavs to a title or the picture?
I think the title, but that's pretty iconic, though.
It's top 3 moments, right?
And it's like it gets put in like the Jordan meme crying.
Yes.
That just, what are you doing?
The amount of things people like photoshopped into LeBron's hands, like the Hennessy, but also JR's like befuddled look has also been a great meme over the years too.
That's where Twitter can be great.
Yes.
I think it was the 3-1 series lead that the Warriors had that they lost. And there was a play, I want to say, I could have him reversed. It was either Clay to Steph or Steph to Clay where he threw it behind the back and it just went out. It was just a bad pass in the corner.
Mm-hmm.
And when someone put like the trophy as the ball and it just goes away, I'm like, that's just great.
There's a lot of creativity on Twitter amongst all the awful cesspool stuff that we see on a daily basis.
You have to, slosh through that junk, but when you get to the gold mine, it's pretty good.
Oh, yeah.
Here's a story from Woodland Hills down in Southern California. Have you ever had a doggy door? Do you have a doggy door right now?
No, but my grandparents did, and they also had a Siberian Husky at the time who got stuck in it. because he
Just too
thought
big?
he tried to go through a little
Yeah.
doggy door and his head got stuck and they had to call the fire department.
Okay. I remember
Fun look at my childhood.
when we had a doggy door as a kid. I was small enough, obviously, to get through the doggy door. We had a big dog, like doggy doors. I never really thought of anything else besides the dog going through there. Well, apparently a coyote went through the doggy door and made it inside to said establishment where were two beagles who aren't the toughest dogs, but they got a good scent. And so they could tell that something was not right and started barking. Eventually, the coyote went right back out the doggy door. But that would be, like, if you ever get an animal, like, in your house, or a bird or something crazy, like, that's just weird.
Yeah, I mean, a bird the most we've had lizards come into our house. We've had critters, so to speak. A coyote? That's terrifying.
And I don't even know that I think they're kind of sheepish, but I don't want to find, like, what do you do
I'd
with
rather
a
not
coyote?
find out.
It's like, hey, here's the door. Like, yeah, sure, I'll walk right out. Like, I don't know. Are they scratching up furniture? Are they scratching you? Like, what are they doing?
Are they howling?
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know. I
don't want to know.
I don't want a coyote, a hyena, crocodile.
Crocodile, no way.
No, I'm good.
I'm not a fan of snakes, but
Yeah,
I feel
not a
like,
snake guy.
I mean, I just don't like them. But like, if a snake was in this room, it's like, okay. I mean, I'm not.
It depends on the snake, right?
Well, true. If it's a rattlesnake, I'm doing whatever I can to stay away from it. It's likely staying away from me, but I'm just not.
Yeah, I'm not a snake. I don't like reptiles. I'm sorry. I'm just not exotic in my animals.
Yeah.
Give me dogs and cats, and we'll call it a day.
Yeah. Lastly, here for me, at least on the news, Jay, over the weekend, anybody that spent any amount of time in Sacramento, any sporting events, any functions, Randy Brink.
Yes.
Would be there. And that's the only other way I could say it would be there. And if you didn't know Randy, you probably wonder, well, who is he? Why is he here? He sure looks like he's in charge. He was. Randy Brink was basically at all the games at Arco. He's at a bunch of Sac State functions. I'm sure, I don't even recall, but maybe it's some of the City Hall moments to keep the team here. But
I want to say he was at least one of them, and I went to several. So
yeah, maybe donning a hard hat at some of the construction sites. Randy Brink basically has been everywhere, and everybody knows him. Was truly a light.
He was an institution.
He was just a special person on so many levels, and unfortunately, he passed away over the weekend. I still never heard cause.
I haven't either. I met Randy once or twice. Didn't really have much interaction, but my mom went to McClatchy with him, so my mom knew Randy really well, and always and still does to this day, speaks glowingly of him. How he's just like. There's just those human beings you come across that are 100% good.
Yes.
He was just 100% good. There was not a bad bone in his body.
Yeah,
So
just a light, right? Looked at life that way, was there, was present, was happy, had the term like he was in charge, whether he was or not, but lived that way.
Just a great human.
Absolutely a great human. We lost a great one, but I feel honored to have known him. And as he would say, proceed. Randy Brink. Truly will be missed, a legend. So thinking of you, Randy, rest in peace, that's for sure. That's it for us today. We will be back tomorrow. Carmichael Dave will be back with us tomorrow as well as we get closer and closer to the start of the NBA Finals. Have yourself a great day. Thank you to Jay Mars. I'm Jason Ross. The great Jim Rome is coming your way next, right here on Sports 1140 KHTK. Proceed.
Now, local business